Welcome to episode number 39 of the Cast Bar. The new expansion has been announced, World of Warcraft Legion. Gamescom unloaded information by the truckload, and we thought we could use some help. We are excited to have Ro from Realm Maintenance with us today. All aboard the hype train. Thank you, and enjoy. Welcome everybody to the Cast Bar, the World of Warcraft podcast channeling your content with no interrupts. Today is Saturday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I am your host, Michael Schwan, and with me I have Evan.
How you doing?
Doing great. Florian.
How's it going?
It's going well. And for his first time on the show, we are so excited to have him here. Ro from Well Maintenance. How are you?
You're excited? Man, that music has me pumped.
Good.
That music has me more pumped than Alex Afrasiabi got me during that presentation. So, well done.
I am just impressed that you could pronounce his last name. I wouldn't have attempted to.
Oh, I know Afrasiabi's name all too well because I have opinions about him, which I've stated on my other show, but we can save that for later. But thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we had talked to Ro in the past about trying to get him on the show, especially since he was very gracious and led us on to Realm Maintenance, but schedules are tight, but we managed to find a time, and it just so happens that it is the perfect time because we get to just unload about the whole the new expansion.
I would have woken up at 2 a.m. to record a expansion release hype show with Ro.
You flatter me way too much. It's funny because like this past week and a half, even before the Legion announcement, I've had literally a half a dozen podcasts say, "Hey, you want to be on our show?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Where were you guys the past 6 months?" Everyone's decided right now, let's get Ro on the show. So for any of you listening to this podcast and you feel like you're getting sick of me, I apologize.
I don't know if people
the
can...
airwaves right now.
All right. Well, anyway, we have piles and... Why'd you change this to... Is this Spanish in the show notes? Anyway, yeah. I'm playing this now. See, that one seemed really quiet. Was that one too quiet now?
Yeah, it's a little bit overdone.
It was decent.
That was decent?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so...
No, I figured, we were talking about the new hero class, Demon Hunters. Sounds kind of like, yeah, Demon Hunters, guys, nerdy. What we need to call it is Cazador de Demones. A lot more kind of realistic.
It sounds like a bad Spanish soap opera. Anyway, for anyone, we are not doing a closer look today. The closer look, and probably everything is going to be consumed with everything about the news. So first, Demon Hunters. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Although you gotta wonder about all those gnomes that are crying that they can't be gnome demon hunters, right?
Yeah, do we want to dive into the race restriction first here?
Sure. So, Night Elves and Blood Elves only, which I think if it wasn't for the whole faction thing, because lore-wise, it's only Night Elves that have ever been Demon Hunters, but I think they kind of just threw Blood Elves in there as we have to give the Horde this too, because otherwise there will be problems.
Very elegant solution.
I actually, it's possible you're correct, although if I'm not mistaken, during the whole, Burning Crusade part, a whole bunch of Blood Elves fell under Illidan's banner led by Kael'thas, right? So I'm thinking the story and lore there is that some of those Blood Elves became part of Illidan's Illidari demon hunters and stuff, and he taught them the ways. I'm guessing that's, if it's retconned or not, that feels, it feels like an explanation that doesn't seem too far-fetched. Any other race being a demon hunter, though, feels a little weird.
Sure.
The Night Elves who are Demon Hunters here are ancient, hundreds of thousands of years old, from the original Moonwell kind of saga, War of the Ancients. Cool.
So right now they didn't give us a level that we're starting at, somewhere between 95 to 100, because they said they want us to be able to jump straight into the Legion content, which I'm all for. I remember the Death Knights, and you get out of the Death Knight starting zone like level 58, and you go to Burning Crusade, and you feel super awkward, because it's like, you gotta go stop Arthas, but first, hang on, let's go to the past. Why? Because...
Imagine if you finished your Demon Hunter experience and had to go to Draenor. How about a buzzkill?
I imagine you'll probably start at like level 97, but by the time you leave your intro area experience stuff,
You'll be 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also double jump. I'm excited. I don't even know what this means that I get to gain access to, but I have a feeling there's going to be videos all over the internet of, look where you can jump!
Yeah, exactly. Like, this vanilla WoW content, I mean, am I going to be able to get into old Ironforge, that kind of thing? Is it going to be this game-breaking thing? I don't think it's going to be that big a deal.
I think that double jump will possibly be disabled in, say, arenas and battlegrounds. I can already see that being a thing, but as far as everything else goes, it's probably going to be fair game.
You know what? While we're at it, let's disable every man for himself in arenas and battlegrounds.
Well, I mean, we're going to get to the PvP revamp probably a little bit later on, but I have a feeling. I have a feeling every man has seen its day.
I have a feeling all the racials have seen their day. But we'll go ahead and stick to Demon Hunters. So they're going to be able to use daggers, fist weapons, one-handed axes, maces, swords.
Axes.
Yeah, that'd be terrifying. And a unique weapon type, glaives, which is going to be a single item that occupies both slots. So kind of like two-handed weapons. So we have a new weapon type unique to a single class, because people would complain a lot in the past of that, oh man, a bow dropped. That's only a hunter weapon. We kind of have this again, but they said that they're not really worried about it, especially because Demon Hunters are also going to be wearing agility-based leather, and that's a pretty full section. But with how much focus they're putting on personal loot, they said that they're not worried about it. What do you guys think?
Weapons won't be dropping in this expansion at all.
That's true.
Right, which means I don't think they're going to have to add glaives in like old content, because the Demon Hunter hero experience means they're going to start at level 100. So as far as warglaives go, I imagine there's going to be the artifact warglaives, which we'll get to in a moment, and they will really be doing Demon Hunters a disservice if they don't make a retroactive fix to warglaives of Azeroth and allow Demon Hunters to use them.
Right,
just for
raid
looks.
teams.
Well,
raid teams who don't use personal loot are going to have like leather problems.
Aren't the warglaives one-handed swords technically?
Oh, I don't know. I think they're on their own weapon class now.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a good question. I don't know. But yeah, what you said is right as far as like the loot system stuff goes. But they are more and more making the personal loot system more attractive, even to the point that we have seen. I think it was Paragon when they got their mythic world's second kill on Archimonde. They were using personal loot for that kill.
Well, it's because they recognize that pretty much normally any loot at this point is an upgrade. It's not really in the same point of like Wrath, where you just really wanted specific items and you want to make sure they got to the people that you needed. Everything's a lot more balanced now, and so with Blizzard stating you get more loot from personal loot, then there's almost no reason not to use personal, because you have the same chances of each item dropping.
Right,
yeah, I am surprised that's not. I'm surprised that's not mail just to balance things. But with personal loot becoming a more and more popular system, I'm guessing Blizzard doesn't consider it's going to be an issue.
And I don't know. I played a rogue in Mists of Pandaria, so I was competing with, feral druids and Windwalker monks and, brewmaster monks, and it never really seemed like a problem. I mean, just because it drops, you still have to win the roll. The only time that I really felt like I was like in a good position in terms of gear was on my elemental shaman, because only elemental shamans and restoration shamans use int mail. So if it drops, it's mine. But anytime I've played anyone else,
I think
there's always some sort of competition.
Wasn't haste pretty disproportionately favored by rogues than any of the other classes. I remember having to pass on haste boots from a rook.
It depends on the
because
spec.
This rogue needed them. Yeah.
Combat rogues want lots
That's
of
another
haste.
thing. It's also going to depend on the group you're raiding with, as far as like if you're in a mythic raiding group, then they're going to be really concentrated on min-maxing, where the secondaries become a very big deal. Whereas if you're with a normal raiding group, or even possibly a heroic raiding group, the secondary stat allocation may not be as big a deal, so getting your hands on one piece of gear over another isn't going to be as much of a competition.
What do you think, Florian?
Well, hopefully, yeah.
I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue, especially with personal loot becoming the thing that it is. I don't see it becoming very much of a problem at all. I think people are just blowing it out of proportion.
I just think people
blowing things out of proportion on the internet? What?
No way. I think what it is people innately have a desire for like a proper organization and what is it called? When one side matches the other.
Hierarchy?
No, not.
Oh no.
They consider the most attractive people in the world to have the peoples whose faces, both halves of their faces, match the most.
Symmetry.
Thank you. And there's people want that in everything because that's just their natural like human instinct. So they see like there's 3 classes that use this. There's 3 here, but there's only 2 that use male. So they feel like that is an empty slot when it doesn't actually matter.
Well, speaking of symmetry, one other important point about Demon Hunters that we forgot to bring up here is only 2 specs.
Yeah, that's true.
That's kind of a big deal.
Wow.
I think it was a smart move though, because like they said healer doesn't make sense. They did 1 DPS and 1 tank, and I remember like with Death Knights, they have blood tanking and then you have Frost and Unholy, and like it doesn't really seem like one is truly better than the other. It's like Unholy is like the 2-handed one, Frost is the 2 one-handed one, and that's really about the entirety of the difference.
That evolved after Wrath Lich King though. That was like Cataclysm.
Right.
They
No, I
started
mean
making that differentiation. They
back
probably
in
had
Wrath,
the
they wanted them to
class,
all to be tanks and all to be DPS. Blood DPS was awesome.
Yeah, in Wrath.
which was awesome.
Yeah.
I really like that, honestly. But but this class, I mean, you have the druids that have 4 specs, and then you have one class with 2 specs, and that brings it back into symmetry. I mean, the number of total specs is divisible by the total number of classes.
Yep.
But I mean, that's really not all that important. They're not doing that for its own sake, of course. I think they're just trying to realize when systems get out of hand, and there's no reason to stick to this 3 spec kind of system when it doesn't really profit them to do so. I mean, how many ways could you spin? It's like the warlock. I feel like they've struggled with. And then they're making a lot of changes to hunters as well. Having all the specs kind of convey a different feel and characterism.
And I think that might have been hard for them.
Rogues are gonna
Yeah,
get that
exactly.
treatment too.
Like, don't shoot yourself in the foot. Don't try to stretch yourself way too thin. I mean, just try to get 2 good specs, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Well, and I think that's why they
difference
chose the
between
2
the
specs, because they don't need 3. And like, with druids, you have the 2 DPS specs as feral and balance, and that's like melee cat up in your face and ranged magic.
Yeah.
Whereas like with a demon hunter, if you went with like a melee DPS and a ranged DPS, what's the ranged DPS gonna do that isn't just gonna feel lame in comparison to the dash around, slice you up melee one?
Whereas with the druid characteristic, you are having too much, individual class identities pop out of 3 specs, and they're like, oh, we need 4 specs. The opposite problem that you get with, warlocks and hunters may just have a little bit easier. They have 3 schools of magic, that kind of thing.
All right.
And it just feels like for this expansion, they're introducing, in a way, 3 new specs anyhow, because, and we'll get to it a bit later on, the survival hunter spec is going to feel like an entirely new thing anyhow, so.
I really want to see more on that. But let's go and get into the next one.
Yeah.
That was really quiet, too. Anyway, Dalaran, it's going to be returning as our expansion hub. It was my favorite expansion hub ever, so the fact that it's coming back just makes me really happy.
Yeah, I'm interested to see exactly what they're going to do in terms of like revamps or changes and stuff. Is it going to be an HD version? Are they going to use the old version of the city? And you have to think, considering some serious lore changes happened with Dalaran, right? I mean, not just with the Kirin Tor, but you recall during Mists of Pandaria, the Sun Reavers basically got kicked out. Now with Khadgar in charge, is Khadgar going to allow Sun Reavers back in, or do the Sun Reavers, are they not even a thing anymore? Are we going to have a Horde and Alliance separate hub in Dalaran? These are a lot of unanswered questions so far.
Yeah, someone did ask them about that, and they said that they still didn't know on whether they're going to like split the city up or if they're going to go back to like the sanctuaries we had in Wrath. Basically, they just don't know, and they did not comment on if we were getting new textures or anything like that. Like, honestly, like, if they did just want to float the current Dalaran over there, I wouldn't be too upset. Dalaran is a really pretty city, even, 6 years later. But I imagine that they'll, even if they use all of the exact same buildings and everything, I imagine they'll still reskin them.
Hopefully they take some pages out of Garrosh's book and put some sweet spikes on it first.
Oh, God.
Now I have a question, and it's about the portals, because that's one of the things that I remember really strong about Dalaran was that one of the reason that everyone was kept there was because all the portals were there, and that's the reason that they said that they didn't want to keep the portals that were in the capital cities and stuff like that, because it makes people, wherever the portals are, that's where people congregate at, and that's why they did less portals also at Ashran with Storm Shield and War Spear. Is that the Horde one?
It sure is, yeah.
Okay. And so with this Burning Legion invasion, I imagine, we're going to get, they already said we're going to get the some sort of pre-expansion event, because we pretty much always do. Do you think there'll also be portals there, because we're going to have access to a whole bunch of different places to go stop, like, stray invasion pieces, or is it just going to, they're just going to try and keep us in the new place?
I think portals are almost a must, especially if the majority of the expansion does not have flight in it.
What were you about to say, Florian?
Well, they would have to. I think they would have to keep the portals in Dalaran, simply because Dalaran is entirely a mage city. It would not make sense for that place not to be absolutely packed with portals. Plus, with the class orders, which we haven't gotten into, some of those have been. Their locations have been given. For example, the Paladin one is going to be under Light's Hope Chapel, which is a pretty good walk away from where the Broken Isles are supposed to be located.
Exactly.
So I can see portals making a comeback.
So do you think that
maybe portals at least to the class orders?
Well, and that was what I was going to say. Do you think they'll have portals to the class orders in Dalaran, or do you think it'll be something like monks have their whatever is transcendence or whatever, where they teleport back to the mountain, or Death Knights have the Death Yate, and Druids have whatever it is that takes them to Moonglade.
Tons of this class-specific things, like a class-specific Hearthstone, so to speak, just to make it really immersive when you teleport to your, Light's Hope Chapel or whatever. I can see them adding flavor that way, making you arrive instantly, but in style.
I'd be excited.
Warriors would just drink from a tavern mug, pass out, and find themselves drinking up their class order.
One can only hope. All right. The honor system. That was one of the things that they announced in their big thing, was that the honor system is getting completely revamped. And we found out later in one of their Q&As that one of their intentions is to completely remove PvP gear. They said it's just not really a fun design. They want to really try and even the playing field, because even with current PvP gear, the PvP gear you get from honor is 80 item level below conquest gear, and the conquest gear was twice the strength of the honor gear guy, and they don't like that, because even if this guy at 620 is better than the 700 item level guy, he can't beat him strictly because the 700 item level guy will just smush him. So the system they're changing to is PvP is going to give you this like honor EXP, and there's going to be a rank for honor, 1 to 50, and at each rank will be a talent or a bonus, and then that is what kind of defines your PvP powers, and it's going to be completely separate from everything else. I kind of never thought they would do this, because it's an entirely separate project that's going to take a lot of work. I was really
If this is
surprised.
the work I want them to put into the crafting system, for God's sake. No, I think this would be really cool for the PvP players. Too bad none of us really do any of that. Maybe we should get a second opinion sometime before expansion releases.
Well, I would like.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead.
I think this is an interesting way of doing things as far as like this is definitely a huge overhaul, and they said during their presentation that they want this system to be the system that goes from basically Legion until the end of time. And putting skill ahead of gear is a huge, huge deal. When you take gear out of the equation and it's all about who's using their abilities more effectively in combat rather than who has the bigger sword or the better piece of armor, I think that's going to bring some people into PvP that haven't been in it before, because one of the things that they would complain about is, the grinding out conquest points and just all the time and stuff spent with that, where instead it'll just all be about personal skill. And for people who can only play the game for short bursts of time but happen to be very skilled players, this is a great plus for them.
I'm thinking this is going to... If this system allows you to progress in this rank thing before you even hit max level, I think that'd be really awesome as well.
Yeah,
Just as an aside point, yeah.
In terms of, like, this moving forward, how much do you think this will change? Do you think this is going to be more of a completely separate entity? Like, they change up the talents and seasons from... The talents and bonuses from each season? Or will it be tied into the expansion? Or
expansion?
I think when they introduced PvP gear for the first time in Classic WoW, I think that was a little bit of a different system. At the end of Classic WoW, going into Burning Crusade, when they put in that 2.0 patch, before the Burning Crusade patch, that's when they introduced this new point system instead of the ranking system, where you get the all the honor gear. And so I forget how to explain it exactly right, but they changed PvP and honor and conquest to kind of forever. Conquest was like a cousin of that, and that came about kind of in the same system. But I think this is going to change PvP more than PvP has been changed since the very first expansion. I think this is significant.
So, do you think this will bring more people to PvP, though? Because they even quoted Call of Duty on this, of, like, everyone's at an even playing field. You're able to prestige at level 50 just to get little bonus cosmetic rewards, such as, like, transmog gear, mounts, different looks for your artifacts. But it's meant to keep everyone on this kind of even keel. So, do you think this will allow more people to actually get into PvP and we can actually see it grow?
I think this is going to put WoW PvP on the map as a standalone PvP game that is on the same tier as games like Heroes of the Storm and Dota. I think this is going to draw people to WoW in a way that people have never come to WoW for, which is to play the PvP.
I don't know if it's going to do that just simply because we are talking about a game that's approaching 11 years old in its life cycle. So I don't know if it's going to have the ability to become a very mainstream accepted part of esports. The whole arena tournament stuff is still kind of a very fringe thing that you only see in a couple places and at BlizzCon every year, right? So I don't know if it's going to be able to succeed as a popular esport thing, but I do think that it is going to bring more people into it.
WoW is too difficult to watch people play for it to ever be an esport. Because the big things that happen in PvP is like, he was trying to cast, Pyroblast. Oh man, it got interrupted. But there's really very little way to see that happen. Whereas,
it's super twitchy, yeah.
Yeah, in like Dota and stuff like that, you see him get silenced by the big blue ball and stuff like that. What was that big ability that just went off? Whereas WoW, even our big abilities aren't very big. Like, it's just like, oh, that was a fireball. Kind of looked like the other one, too.
From a first-person kind of Twitch perspective, like somebody casting live there at Battleground Games, I think it's pretty popular, and you can follow people. And if you're following one person from first-person perspective, you can see what's going on and have a good time and be entertained as a spectator. But yeah, for group setting, I can't imagine a bird's eye view of a 2v2 arena match. That would be kind of stupid.
I think this is kind of going off in a tangent compared to talking about Legion, but when it comes to WoW PvP and its popularity as an esport, I think its biggest problem has been the emphasis that was put on arena play. If they had put more emphasis on battlegrounds and the objectives associated with battlegrounds and such like that, I think that its popularity could have grown more.
Oh, definitely, I agree.
You put more focus on the objectives and those capture points and stuff like that, that's something that as a viewer you can be more invested in
and
when
easily understand.
Players versus players killing each other. There's just not as much to it.
Yeah, and you can easily understand it too. I mean, like Silver Shard Mines, we talked about it not too long ago. You could, especially if they had a way to zoom out the map and like put a mini map of where everyone is, you could be like, oh man, there's a huge swarm of horde heading up towards the fire mine cart, and it allows them to actually have a more interactive experience. But you're right, with arenas, it's literally just who can kill the other one better.
Right.
It's like mixed martial arts, honestly. But yeah, it's as opposed to soccer or football where there are objectives, But yeah.
Well, like with mixed martial arts, it's a little bit different because those are actual people, and you get a much more like personal view. Like with Warcraft, unless they had like a way to like have a floating camera that someone was really good at controlling that was like flying around the battlefield, but then you have risk of like giving people motion sickness and stuff. So it's a really complicated environment.
Closer look,
and
how do you
MMA,
wow.
MMA instant replays of like knockouts and knockdowns and stuff are far more exciting than watching, say, an instant replay of someone going down in an arena match.
Oh man, did you see Anderson Silva's foot just fly the other direction?
Unless somebody still locks him and seriously, that Resto Shaman goes 100% to 0, that is pretty exciting.
But we also have played WoW for like 10 years. The thing with esports is that you need to be able to present them to people that don't know what's happening and get them excited about it.
So you're saying people who watch MMA are excited about it because they're a human on planet Earth?
Kind of. I mean, it's a lot more simpler. It's basic of, well, we've probably all gotten in some level of altercation before, and it's kind of like a professional altercation. So you have that experience on some level, even if it's just getting an argument with your friend over the phone. You know what it's like to fight. So it's something that you can relate to.
Bar, 4 WoW nerds discuss why people like boxing.
Moving along. Artifacts. This was one of the things they were real big and excited about. They're going to be unique weapons that are powerful items from history that you're going to get at the very beginning of the expansion, and you will be carrying those literally throughout the entire expansion. They said they are not going to have any weapons that will be dropped in the expansion, so the one you get's the one you get. And
I got it here right out of the gate what Florian has to say about this thing. Well, after you finish your intro, of course.
The only other things I want to say is the two main examples they gave us was Ashbringer is going to be able to be grabbed by Retribution Paladins, and Doomhammer will be able to be grabbed by Enhancement Shamans. So Florian, as the continuity expert and lore buff that you are, how does this make you feel?
Well, I actually have mixed feelings on this. Although you guys are probably expecting me to be super anti on this. It actually reminds me of the relic weapon system from Final Fantasy XIV, which was very successful, where they had a similar system where you'd get a special weapon when you got to max level, and you could do a series of quests to upgrade it and make it stronger until it became legendary, and it added a lot of class flavor in that game. So having experienced that, I'm kind of honestly a little bit bullish about artifact weapons. I feel like it could really add a lot of flavors to classes and be really interesting if they execute it properly. On the other hand, the lore nerd inside me is screaming, why are there going to be 1 million Ret Paladins with Ashbringers?
Yeah, that's what I think is the redundancy of it.
Honestly, I just kind of wonder why they're pulling out all these huge weapons. The Ashbringer, the Doomhammer. They're having the Death Knights go get Frostmourne and reforge it. And it's like, what's left for the future?
Exactly.
It's interesting because it reminds me of an argument that was made. It's been made a few times in terms of transmogging legendary weapons, right? And that one of their concerns is that they don't want people to transmog legendary weapons because they don't want everyone in-game running around with Warglaives of Azeroth or running around with Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker. Yes, I did say it. Or everyone using Terragosa as their visual model for their staff. But in essence, you're doing exactly that with this artifact system. Now, given one of the things that they're doing is they're creating several different visuals so that not everyone's Ashbringer is going to look the same, not everyone's Doomhammer is going to look the same, and you unlock those looks via, just artifact power, leveling up, doing achievements, ratings, so on and so forth.
PvP.
But still, it's going to be, PvP too. That's still going to be a limited palette to choose from. So you're still going to see a lot of very similar weapons between characters of the same class.
Right. And
then what else? The other thing they're allowing to do to hit this on the other front with another piece of ammunition is letting you transmog the thing, but not to transmog to the thing. So if you are the kind of person who says, I don't want to have the same damn source every damn person else, you just transmog it to something else and you create your own history.
Right.
What pallies are going to want to transmog Ashbringer to something that's not
probably
Ashbringer?
the people who were annoyed so much by this idea, they just don't want to protest
Right.
it,
But on the same note, though, there's going to be 5 different appearances, so 5 variations of the appearance, and then each one, they didn't say, but each one also has color swaps. So there's going to be color palettes for each one, and I don't know how many there is, but maybe 5. So you have a total of 25 possible different appearances. So, and then also at the same time, like it'll probably be incredibly apparent at your class order, at your class hall, but when I go into like a 12-man raid, I am often like the only holy priest or the only enhancement shaman. Sometimes there's like 2 warriors, but one's a prot warrior who's tanking, the other's a fury warrior. So I don't think it'll be that maybe when you're hanging out in Dalaran or your class orders, you'll kind of, see that little, like, samey effect going on. But if you're anywhere where everyone isn't, or even if in a raid, I think the differences will be much more apparent.
No, I agree with that because this is spec specific. There are 36 artifacts, one for every spec, so it's not going to be that big an issue. Rarely in a raid do you have more than 2 of the exact same spec in the raid, and even when you're running around in a city, to be quite honest, there are going to be people of your spec in the city, but you're probably going to be too busy using the auction house or going to this, that, and the other place to really notice.
36 specs.
Yeah.
36.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So maybe there is enough. Maybe there is enough variety. I'm just the thing I'm excited about the most when it comes to this whole artifact thing is just the fact that they're putting so much emphasis on the class story. And I mean, as a warlock, I had the opportunity to do the epic quest for Green Fire back during Mists of Pandaria, and that was an awesome thing. And they had said in the past that doing class quests takes a lot of time and development resources and such like that. Well, they had decided to put their resources into that, and now everybody, I'm hoping, is going to have an experience that may not match what the Green Fire quest was like, but it could come pretty darn close and maybe exceed it in some ways. You had said, we were talking a little bit pre-show, though, that you had mentioned that one of the devs has said that it wasn't going to be as challenging as a Green Fire quest.
Yeah, they said that it would be much... I forget their exact wording, but it was something along the lines of it's going to be simpler and easier in comparison to the Green Fire quest. Because the Green Fire quest was pretty long, and also a lot of people found it very difficult. And since this is technically supposed to be the item you're supposed to get at the beginning, and like you have to get your artifact before you can go and open up the class hall, and it's the weapon that you're carrying through the expansion, they can't really make a real large difficulty cap on that, because then you can't exactly do the expansion.
Oh, sure, I can understand that as far as like the beginning and the middle parts of the expansion, but I think there is a space in this artifact system where you can have sub-quests or side quest portions that are very challenging that unlock maybe one of the special visuals for it or such. I really am against the idea of them dumbing down single-player content. The 6.2 experience in Tanan Jungle, the Garrison campaign, just really felt so watered down and easy mode. It's not like there was any challenge at all in that. And
it felt like an interactive narrative.
Right, and for these class quests to feel more fulfilling, I think one of the things that's important to this whole, to having your class personal story is to add some moments where there is some personal challenge. Now, I'm not saying it has to be necessarily as hard as Epic Green Fire, but I want to see a couple of moments along this quest line where you have challenge equivalent to, say, the beginning of the Legendary in Warlords of Draenor during that part where you are fighting the ghost of Kairos Dormu. That wasn't terribly hard, but you couldn't just sleep your way through it either.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like a lot of Warlords itself was pretty dumbed down and simplified and made a lot easier just as a whole in comparison to everything that we've had in the past.
Just a second. I want to get Florian's thought on this because you and Bro got your points down on lock. I want to say, Florian, do you think that the personal challenge aspect of the artifact quest is going to be challenging, or is it going to be more like the interactive narrative like they're talking about? I think the latter.
I think it'll vary. I think the beginning parts are going to be the very easy parts that are more of an interactive narrative, simply because weapons aren't going to drop, so everyone's going to have to get the artifact. So it has to be kind of a handout given to everybody. But I can see later parts being difficult. I know that the developers are considering allowing you to make the artifact legendary at some point, and I would imagine, since that's entirely optional, the quests leading up to that could be quite difficult if the developers want it. At least I hope they would be.
From my understanding,
I guess they would do that. Yeah.
From my understanding, it starts out at Epic, becomes legendary, and then they're considering after legendary creating a unique rarity purely to artifacts, of where it just doesn't have one, of where it just is the artifact.
So I don't think we've quite gotten to this yet, but I imagine the way they could incorporate that is through the relic system that's being tied to the artifact system.
Sure, and
if you make these relics that are the parts that make them legendary or super powerful.
They didn't give a whole lot of detail on it. So first, your artifact is going to have its own talent tree, essentially. You're going to be able to unlock different abilities and bonuses. The one that they specifically pointed out was like the Frost Death Knight one. One of the bonuses you can get will be to enable to raise yourself from the dead. But in addition to those talent trees that you unlock with artifact power, which you get for accomplishing missions and quests and leveling up and stuff, the other thing is they're going to have relics, which relics... The easiest comparison I can give you is relics are going to be exactly what gems are to gear, except it's special just for artifacts. And they didn't show any of them or what they are or what they do, just that there's going to be these special relics that you can put in your artifact to do something, to make yourself different from everyone else.
I want to ask each of you a question when it comes to this artifact system. When you saw the tree, the artifact tree for Ashbringer and for the Death Knight swords and stuff, did it remind you of anything from another game? Because it did for me. It
reminded me of, me personally, it reminded me of the Crystarium system from Final Fantasy 13-2. I don't know if that's what you thought of, but it looked just like 13-2.
Close.
No, I like the cool background art for it, but no, this doesn't remind me of anything new.
So for me, Final Fantasy, although I was thinking of the Sphere Grid system for Final Fantasy X, which the Crystarium kind of is close to as well. So basically along
that
those lines.
game. Yeah.
Did you play 13-2, bro?
Actually, this is more like Skyrim talent trees.
Sure.
Yeah, I can kind of see that too. But basically, I guess the point is, one of the things about this artifact system is that it's different wrapping and packaging for providing player progression, which is awesome. But let's not necessarily act like this is innovative new ground. This is just a different way for them to show player and power progression in the game.
But it is new for Warcraft, giving a talent tree to a weapon. But I mean, we were giving them to pets, and we're giving them to almost followers now. So like, why not give it to your damn mount?
And also,
actually, that's a really great idea. Why not give it to your damn mount?
Also, historically, isn't that what Blizzard and Warcraft does? They just take other people's ideas, make them better, and put them into their game. Like that's what they do all the time. So, I mean, if they're going to do that again, I have no problem with it, because it normally always works. They try and make up their own things like garrisons, and those just let us all down.
You don't want player housing, you want garrison. Take a look at
No.
this.
Garrison was actually stolen from Facebook, though. We've agreed on that.
Well, that
Go ahead,
It does
Florian.
seem like exactly what they're doing, because not only the artifact system, but the class orders. When I saw those, it screamed Final Fantasy XIV to me, because they have a very similar system as well. So I think it's the same thing. Blizzard is just seeing what other people are doing that works and adapting it to World of Warcraft, and that's what they've always been best at.
Okay, so quick question then. So, and they mentioned later, and we might get there, that they're not too concerned about the drops in subscribers, but because Florian, you've played a decent number of Final Fantasy 14. I played it for a little while. Evan, I know you haven't. Ro, have you played 14?
So when Realm Reborn launched, I played it for about a month, and the only reason why I left was because I was just too busy with WoW and other games. I think that Realm Reborn's a great game though, and I will likely go back to it during the months before Legion comes out. But yeah, I've played it some.
Okay, so they hit, in April, they hit 4 million subscribers. Now, that is a very impressive number, because normally when MMO comes out, their top end goal of, well, if everything goes perfectly, what number do we want to hit? 1 million. Most of the time they're like, oh man, we hit 100,000, we made it, guys, we did it, woo! Realm Reborn is going higher and higher and higher, and a lot of these ideas, as Florian is comparing them, seem to come from Realm Reborn. Do you have, and this is pure tinfoil hat, I'm speculating, do you wonder if Blizzard isn't concerned about a Realm Reborn starting to eat them away? Because I mentioned previously, a WoW killer isn't going to be something that's released and just steals everyone away from WoW. It's going to be what Final Fantasy XIV is doing and just siphons off 500,000 at a time. So do you think
I'm
maybe...
just glad my podcast is called Realm Maintenance, because I can transition to Final Fantasy XIV.
Dirty dog. I was called the cast bar. A lot of games have casting.
That's true.
Yeah,
But no, as far as your question goes, do I think that Blizzard feels threatened or feels like they need to step their game up? Well, obviously, and I think the stuff that they're tossing at us, remember a couple years ago, the idea of having class-specific quests was something we thought we would never ever see in WoW. They are making big changes and going back on some of the things they've said. They realize that the other games are doing some of this stuff better, and they need to at least give it their best go.
Sure. I'll save my next question for a little bit. The last thing on artifacts is that there was one more they announced, which is going to pull us into class changes. They announced the Eagle Spear, and they said it is for survival hunters, which currently use bows. So let's go ahead and get into class changes.
This is awesome.
Class changes. The first one that I wanted to talk about. Okay, go for it. Have fun.
Is a survival hunter is now going to be a melee hunter? After vanilla, I mean, a lot of these things they're changing a lot of these class aspects and PvP game aspects, kind of things. In a way, they haven't changed since vanilla went into TBC, and it just makes me giddy. It makes me want to jump out of my goddamn socks. So yeah, they're giving the survival hunters a pole arm. They're giving survival hunters their pet. So it's like man and beast kind of thing. They're giving Beastmaster hunters their pet, of course, is a ranged hunter with a pet. And then Marksman hunters, they're getting rid of the pet. I mean, no more of this lone hunter thing. No more of this number crunching. Oh, my arcane shot does 20% more damage, this and that, blah, 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 you know? It's just, it's making the specs more iconic. And that's the only way to make those 3 specs. And we'll talk about Warlocks too, is with the hunters, they're way too homogenized. Pull one of them way out of the fray. Give them a spear. Make them have at a melee range. I think that's what the hunter started off as, and now they're bringing it back to their base. So I'm really excited about this. Get on the hype train. Yep.
Hype train. I unfortunately don't have a train whistle. There you go.
Well, I don't play a hunter, but I'm definitely, when I saw this, I'm definitely happy for hunters, because one of the things that I've heard hunters complain about, and I've heard them talk about on the Hunting Party podcast, and I've seen people blog about it, is that it felt like there just wasn't enough individual identity for each spec, and it was less about what spec was more fun to play, but which spec was performing better in raids and DPS and stuff. Now each spec feels like it's going to have its own unique identity, and that's cool.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I think it's something that should have been done a long time ago. Hunter's the most played class, and as such, I know a very large number of them. And survival hunters used to have melee capabilities, and before Cataclysm, all hunters had a minimum range, so they had melee weapons, and that's where the joke of everything's a hunter weapon, because they were able to use almost anything, because they just needed to fight you off if you got into melee range with them. That all went away, and when that went away, the idea of a melee survival hunter, the idea of a melee hunter at all, just was completely ixnayed. And so I know a lot of people already that have just shouted to the rooftops about how excited they are on this. Because, well...
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I have a hunter, and it's pretty underwhelming, because it's just like, well, I guess I'm this one now. Oh, they made that one bad.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember looking at WoW for the very first time when it was in open beta, still hadn't even been released, and thinking, all right, one of the key features of hunters is they do a wing clip to keep their enemies slowed, and they don't even have that damn spell anymore. You know, they don't have Mongoose Bite, which is another heavy Raptor Strike. You know, these were things that put the hunter in melee range and kept those hunters, God bless them, rolling on those strength axes. You know,
because everything's a hunter weapon.
Exactly. So, I mean, no, I think this is really cool, and I think this is. It's almost like they're rebooting WoW, you know, from the very first. Get this class identity back. Above all else, people feel like they're not playing the class they signed up for. And especially people who've been playing the same class for a really long time and seeing their individuality kind of stripped expansion after expansion, especially with the ability bloat revamp. I mean, it just, it was a simplification, you know. They took out Druid Symbiosis, and like, what do we have left anymore, honestly, besides 4 forms and the you know, can't even go into a Crow form in Draenor, but
so,
you know what I'm talking about, just like, yeah, doing some justice and paying some service back to their damn players. I think they're doing a lot of things just because it's what we've been asking for a long-ass time.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was complaining that all of the classes even were getting too samey. I mean, everyone had a stun, everyone had a slow, everyone had a silence, everyone had everything. So it was like, why does it matter which one I play? Because it kind of didn't, because you could do everything as any of them. The only difference was, are you melee or are you ranged? The next thing, though, is primarily directed towards Ro and Florian. They said that Warlocks are going to be getting completely restructured, much the same as Hunters. Primarily, Demonology is getting another real strong focus, because they don't like how much of basis is put on the Metamorphosis, because by my understanding, that's almost where all of your throughput comes from right now, and they're going to be changing it to where Demonology is actually all about your demons and controlling them. Florian, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a very good move, simply because the very word demonology implies that you're going to be dealing a lot with demons. I also feel that taking Metamorphosis away from Warlocks is something they really needed, because Metamorphosis didn't feel very strong. You know, when you look at it visually, it's visually impressive. You know, there's a big effect. You turn all huge and angry, and you got your huge wings, and you're scary. And it's like, you know, it's like turning Super Saiyan, I guess. It looks awesome. But the problem is, since it was a regular part of the rotation, and it was so normal, it got really boring and really uninteresting. And playing a Demonology Warlock, you didn't feel powerful at all. So I think changing the focus of it and making it more about the demons you summon and less about transforming into a demon is probably a good move.
And what do you think, Ro?
So I've not played Demonology that much at all. The last time I played Demonology was all the way back in Cataclysm, when during the beta there was this little thing called Dark Apotheosis, which allowed Warlocks to tank in Demonology, and I was so stoked about that. I was so hyped about tanking as a Warlock. I thought it was awesome. And then they decided, maybe not. And now we see that they have basically taken that whole idea of Warlock tanking, and they are putting that over with the Demon Hunter class. I imagine you are going to see a lot of players who wanted Warlock tanks end up rolling Demon Hunters.
Oh.
I would imagine a ton of people are going to roll Demon Hunters that also play Warlocks. As far as the Demonology focus getting more about demons, yeah, I'm cool with that. I mean, Metamorphosis wasn't in the game for quite a long time. I think it was Cataclysm when Metamorphosis became a thing, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not like the end of the world if Metamorphosis gets nerfed or even outright removed from Demonology altogether. It's better off being where the Demon Hunter hero class is, and I'm hoping that with the emphasis that they put on Demonology, I think one of the things that they need to do with Demonology is revamp the whole talent grimoire of, Supremacy. I feel like Grimoire of Supremacy should be something which is just baseline to Demonology. Like, Demonology should be able to access those improved demons regardless of having to select a talent for them, you know?
Sure. They didn't say anything.
Do you guys think that...
Go ahead, Evan.
1 second. Do you guys think that Metamorphosis being pulled from Demonology was necessary to bring Demon Hunters in? I mean, Cazadores de Demones.
Oh, boy. That again. No habla Warcraft.
Yeah, Florian, do you think that they needed to pull Metamorphosis in order to make Demon Hunters a viable class? I mean, honestly, that was the Demon Hunter ability in Warcraft 3. They gave it to Demonology Warlocks. I guess I kind of see that. But now we have Demon Hunter class. I mean, obviously it's like, all right, give it back now. Immolation, give it back. We got to give it back to the Demon Hunters now. Come on.
I think it's fine if they end up just removing it completely from Demonology Warlocks and essentially just giving it to Demon Hunters. It shouldn't. It doesn't quite feel. It never quite felt right to me of a warlock taking on a demon form, controlling demons and like channeling demonic power. Sure, but historically, if I like trudging through the memory banks, like even a demon focused warlock. It's generally really bad if he was like, and then I pull the demonic energy into myself, and then I turn into this really big gross thing that you have to kill. Rah.
Hey, here's a question. If a Demon Hunter goes into Metamorphosis, can I use Enslaved Demon on him?
Dump that shit out.
I hope so.
I think that was mosquitoes. I'm like, what bug is going to reproduce in water, standing water?
Gnats.
Oh, is that right?
Anyway.
One more point before we leave this specific topic, though. Role players who are really used to having a demon form are going to have to explain why they can't turn into a demon to all their role-playing friends now.
Well, I already had a question in regards to that because on most of the Warcraft RP servers, you do not whip out legendaries because there's only supposed to be one, and they generally have on their server forums of who technically has that legendary at that moment. And now everyone's going to be running around with Ashbringers, so...
Oh, man.
If you're a decent member of the roleplay community, you will transmog that Ashbringer to some kind of sword of the war.
Right? Yeah, transmog is going to become pretty much mandatory.
I can imagine they make it through the guild rules. You have to transmog your artifact. Sorry, guys. Except for the guild
Sorry,
master
you can't wield Ashbringer.
I don't know.
A
couple other things on class changes. They said that they're not going to do another stat squish. Does this mean we're probably going to be going back to 1 million HP again already? Because tanks right now have 400,000, right?
Yeah, it depends on how they do item level breaks. So one of the things that we saw in Warlords of Draenor is I think they were separating each raid difficulty level by about 15 item levels, right? So I guess one of the ways they could get around it is possibly narrowing the difference between item levels and difficulty, although then you have people saying that, well, they're not far enough apart to make Mythic and Heroic feel like that big of a jump. So it's it's a tricky situation. They've said in the past that they would eventually have to do an item squish again, so we won't see it this expansion. I would not be surprised if we saw another squish in the expansion following.
Okay. They said that they're not going to be doing a new talent row. Well, they said they might be doing one. They're just not entirely sure because so many talents are essentially being put into artifacts that they don't really know if we need another one. Especially because...
here are your 10 talents or so in that artifact tree, so that's going to be your progression this expansion.
110's a weird level to put in a new talent anyway in that UI.
Well, 10 was a weird level to put.
We gotta think about symmetry, right?
Well, 100 was a weird level because you get 15 all the way up to 90, and then it was like 10,
and then 100.
Yeah, 10 more, 100. That seems good. I have a feeling they'll end up not, just because since the artifacts are spec based, you're essentially giving each spec like 5 more talents, so not really a need to give the entire class a new talent choice. I don't know.
I'd agree with that.
Agreed.
And then since
Florian, we get too complicated with the talent systems, or do you think we should get a character talent as opposed or on top of the artifact talents?
No, the artifact talents are probably plenty.
That's what I'm thinking too. I don't think we're going to be starving for customization options from 100 to 110.
And then, since Evan got to get excited about hunters, Florian and Ro got excited about warlocks. My turn. Priests. I was really surprised at this. They're basically saying that disc priests are going to be going back to their design in Mists of Pandaria, where they're heavily focused on doing DPS. They're going to be about 50% DPS, 50% healers.
No, if only they let Shadow Priest focus on doing DPS now.
Oh, God, why do you have to do this to me? It's that Shadow Orb mechanic, man. It just doesn't work. Anyway, so but they said that instead of just being able to spam Smite and Holy Fire and essentially still be the #1 healer in the raid, you're gonna have to do a little bit more flow in your rotation. So like you're gonna still have to heal people with regular heals, and whoever you've healed will get like a buff that allows your atonement, which is the healing that you get from dealing damage, to deal more healing to those people. So you'll actually have to like pay attention a little bit more than just spamming 1 and 2 over and over again until the boss dies.
So and they're saying that they learned a lot from fist weaving, but they did not mention any changes to fist weaving whatsoever.
I'm just kind of wondering when it comes to this stuff, Schwan, you play a healer, right, on your priest?
Yes, pretty much primarily.
Okay, so I can't really speak for this because I haven't paid attention too much, but one thing I think I've noticed with almost every freaking expansion is they say, guys, healers, we understand your problem, and we have the solution to fix healing and to make it feel more interactive and such like that. And every time they've pretty much missed the target, haven't they?
Yes. The only time... So they tell us every expansion, because every expansion, especially towards the end, degenerates into everyone takes 80% of their life and damage, healers have to burst them back up, rinse, repeat over and over and over again. And they don't like that because everyone just starts focusing on big burst healing, and in every expansion, in this one, they were really loud about it. They're like, we're going to switch to a more triage healing, where you just have to kind of keep people up at around 80% life. Your heals won't heal as much. That didn't happen at all. I don't know if they just kind of like forgot to turn on the button, but it just didn't happen.
We got this button, didn't press the button.
People are still taking half their life and damage, even against Kargath and Heimal. People are still getting slammed, and you still kept them at 100 because they needed to be at 100.
Right.
Never once did I feel like, he's only at 80%. He's good. Let's work on somebody else.
As a tank, I mean, I'm looking at my health a whole lot as a tank, believe it or not, and that's what gets me to press my buttons. Is when my health spikes way down. I have to pop, runic healing, which, it does heal me like 85% of my maximum health. I mean, that's a huge heal that is supposed to be pushed as a knee-jerk reaction to a huge spike in damage, which they had to put on in order to make my job interesting. So it's like they said this is how we're going to fix a problem, but they forgot to fix the fundamental part of the problem, which is the damage coming in.
So I have not done any mythic healing.
I'm just hoping they fix that this time.
I have not done any mythic healing, but ever since Wrath of the Lich King, I have been a heroic raider healer, always on my priest. And from my experience, and most people don't agree. I have a feeling a lot of more professional people might, but the best time that healing ever was, where healing felt really good. It felt challenging, it felt interactive, it felt like I was doing more than just hitting a button that brings you to full life, was at the beginning of Cataclysm, when everything was really friggin' hard. That was the time that I felt that healing was fantastic. Because ever since they changed away from that, my mana has never meant a thing. Because that's one of the things that's really supposed to be important about healers, is managing your mana so that you have enough mana to heal people. I've never had a problem with it since they've switched away from that difficult system. And instead of taking so much damage in, especially during like Bastion of Twilight, I specifically remember very clearly fighting against the dragon guy, and you had to choose which dragons you were fighting with. He would often, the tanks or the group would often take, instead of like 80% of their damage, it was like they're going to take 30% of their life every 5 seconds. And it's like, wait, what? Every 5 seconds, your party is going to lose a third of their life. Go. And it's like, oh, geez, that's real. Not like, oh, this guy's...
Every 5 weeks playing Warcraft, your entire rate's going to take a third. No, sorry. Go ahead.
But, I mean, now it's like, oh, man, the tank's going to get hit for 90% of his life. Just make sure you top him off. If someone's standing in the wrong place, then they're probably going to die or take 90% of their life. The only other thing is, like once every 2 minutes, the entire raid is going to take 60% of their life. And it's like, okay, well, every single healer has a raid-wide cooldown, so I'll go first, you go second, you go third. By that time, I'm back up, so... Oh, look, he did the scream. Alright, Hymn of Hope. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, fighting him. 2 minutes later, oh, he did the scream. Alright, Druid, pop Tranquility. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So, I mean... I think the thing is that if they want to make healing really interactive and really fun for healers, then they have to make things more difficult for everyone else. And this whole thing that they've pushed now of this personal responsibility isn't it. Because with what it does is it pretty much just means everything is on you, and if you mess it up, either you die or everyone dies, and there's nothing the healers can do about it. So, blah.
It's a tough problem to figure out.
Did you guys like the Thok fight, the dragon or the giant T-Rex with the shot collar?
That fight was amazing, and anyone who didn't think so was words. I will say though that I didn't appreciate that Hunters basically just got off scot-free on that fight. Yeah, but in terms of healing, that was a pretty darn challenging healing fight because you had to really understand timing, because you had, when he was at max screams, max haste or whatever, where he screamed every like second and a half, you had to be really focused on knowing, like, watching his cast bar and hitting the button when his cast bar is almost done so that you have just enough little space in there to get a heal in. But I enjoyed that fight. Although things like Devotion Aura kind of just made it silly because, well, the raid would get low, Paladin would pop Devo Aura, which means you can't be interrupted. Then one of them again pops Hymn of Hope, Tranquility, etc. And then the fight just got completely...
And then I learned that Smoke Bomb was an ability that rogues had because of that fight.
Yep. Alright, moving on. Class order halls. So we've already mentioned it a lot so far, and that they said they're going to be a specialized zone for each class that you gain access to after you acquire your artifact. You are the leader of this hall, and I've already heard lots of people talk about this. You are the leader of your class, essentially, and you're going to have these champions, which are the same as followers, but much more specialized. They said, kind of think of like Knights of the Round Table. And they're going to be able to do jobs and stuff, much like your followers do in your garrison, but instead of just like, you go out and you do this and you bring me stuff, it's going to be like, you go out and that makes a difference for when I have to go out there, or they're going to go out and explore and be like, yo, hey, we found this cave, you want to come check it out? And you're like, yeah, I totally do, thanks for finding that for me. Or they'll come fight with you and stuff like that. It's also going to be the place that you upgrade your artifacts, and it's intended to be like a small personal zone compared to like Archaris for DKs, or the Moonglade for druids. You're only going to go there for small things, talents, work on your artifact or comparison for like Runeblade for DKs, and it's going to be a heavy flavor. They expect all your downtime to be in Dalaran, though. The thing is that you're going to have to give yourself a little bit of suspension of disbelief, because every single one of you is technically the leader of this hall.
Yeah, you hear that, Florian? You mean Death Knights. I'm in charge. Don't forget it.
But Florian's in charge,
We'll
too.
see about that.
It's kind of going to have to run along the same way of, we were all commanders, but I was the commander in my game, because this is a single-player MMORPG now. But at the same time, though, it's going to be really weird, because you're going to see all of your other class players there. So, what do you guys think about that? It seems really weird. Like, with your garrison, you were alone.
I don't think it's a problem in anywhere but really role-playing realms, right? Because I outside of role-playing realms, I don't think people are going to really care that, oh, I'm the leader, but so is this player and this player and this player from a story perspective. If people see everyone's wielding Ashbringer, everyone's wielding this weapon or that, and if everyone's the leader, whatever, because during Warlords of Draenor, everyone was the garrison commander as far as the story goes. In role-playing realms, this could be kind of an issue. It discourages... to me, it feels like it discourages interaction between each other in a role-playing realm, because how do you decide who the actual leader is, you know?
How do you decide who the actual leader is in a role-playing guild? I think it's pretty much comes out of consensus and organization.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing.
Right.
I mean, if you have 50 paladins in your guild, you're going to designate them as the leader of the paladins of your guild. Which, I mean, I know some RP guilds that already have this. That they already have I'm the leader of the, blah, 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 blah. We are the guild's, group of paladins. I forget the word they said. Their retinue or whatever. Anyway, so I think it'll work the same way. But it'll really be dependent on guilds. Because, yeah, it's real difficult to do otherwise.
What do you think, Florian?
I think it's something that'll just need to be sorted out in roleplay realms. I don't think it's going to be that bad. It's kind of similar to the legendary situation, where you just kind of have to figure out who on that server has that legendary, or you can just say no one has it. I think class order halls are going to be same kind of thing. Like, when you're hanging out in there, you're probably just going to have to pretend that you're not actually in charge of the place. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I do see the feature of class order halls bringing a lot of new lore and flavor to classes, which is good, because that's something we've been lacking. And I'm kind of wondering if this is something that'll only be for max level players, or if this means that maybe there will be class quests for lower levels, and maybe that will become a thing again.
I think it's going to be for lower levels, because they say that the class order hall is basically the second step, right? And you obtain the artifact very early on. So I am pretty darn sure that you're going to be interacting with your class order hall as you level up to 110.
I think what Florian meant is levels 1 through 100. Because you do access your order hall after you get your artifact. But I think what Florian is actually saying is for like the level 32 paladin, if you would ever be brought to the order hall. But I don't think in terms of...
I don't think so.
The time... Because the way that Warcraft works is whatever you're doing at that point in time, for you is technically what is the present time. So, like, if you are in Draenor, the Lich King has been killed. But if you go to Northrend, you have to suspend your disbelief to believe that it is Wrath of the Lich King right now. The Lich King has not been defeated, etc., etc. And so, when you're level 32... class order halls, even if you have one on a different character, it's never actually existed yet for your character.
Right.
And Illidan is loose.
Twice!
Go get him.
Twice!
He's loose again at the same time as when he was loose before. God damn it.
Yeah, who needs continuity, right? It really just sounds like a place that you're just going to go to upgrade your artifacts, tell your champions what to do, and get out. Which is good, because I think they really didn't like how much we were just locked in our garrisons, sitting there playing Hearthstone with Ben Brode. Because I didn't need to leave my garrison for like 3 weeks, because I was like, I don't feel like finding a raid this week. Yep, do my missions, do a couple of things, And yeah, I'm done. Bye. So it they're trying to get people out of that because they realize that the game became incredibly antisocial when you just stick everyone into their own personal room.
Yeah, and they're saying let's spend less time in these class order halls than we spent in the garrisons, and I say yes to that.
Yeah, and they said there's not going to be a bank there, there's no auction house there, so you can mess with your champions. I imagine there'll be a class trainer there for you to like reset your spec and stuff like that, and then tell your champions what to do. And I'm assuming that is all that's going to be there, besides like fun flavor things.
That, and it's supposed to be like the starting point for portions of the quest lines. So
Sure.
You'll be going back there from time to time in order to continue the lore and the story and all that. I'm really excited. I think for some classes, this whole concept of having a very class-specific storyline and having these class order halls, it's going to help a few of these classes because there are some classes where it's pretty obvious who the popular lore figures, who the key lore figures are for your class and stuff, like Lady Liadrin was mentioned as one for paladins and such.
Sure.
But I don't think you have that kind of identity yet for other classes. Warriors is a great example. Who do warriors really look up to? Who are the
Garrosh,
most...
Hellscream.
Varian Rin.
Who's dead, thankfully.
Varian's not. Can't kill our king.
Is Varian going? Well, you see, that's a whole other issue.
What'd you say, Evan? I missed it.
Don't
Who did Evan
Nope,
say?
no, I said Sour.
Oh,
Is he dead?
sure.
He gets stung by bugs in Siege of Orgrimmar.
Who's the dude that injured Targaryen, the orc that actually wounded him? What's his name? Broxigar. Yeah.
There
Roxagar.
you go.
He's dead too, though, so there's lots of dead warriors. They try and charge into things that they just die in. Charge! Oh, he just ran in. Oh, God. No, it's true, though. I mean, there are some classes like... Name, besides Illyria, who we do know is going to be in the expansion, name a hunter that actually is still relevant.
Sylvanas Windrunner.
She's not a hunter.
Nathanos Blightcaller.
I don't even know who that is.
Nathanos Blightcaller is currently part of the undead and stuff, but he was like a hunter. He had those hounds with him in the Eastern Plaguelands. If you remember
sure.
some of the questing there.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yep, I guess, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good point, though.
Our guys. And then you have Rexar, which when you introduce this idea of a melee survival hunter, he's the
There
poster
you go.
child. You know,
Yeah,
that's just
absolutely.
now you're gonna want survival hunters being able to rip off their shirts and just jump onto things.
Oh.
one. Haven't we always wanted that?
No, no. I am a priest. I've never wanted to jump onto anything.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, let's get into the next one. Dungeons and raids. They said there's going to be 9 dungeons. I'm not naming them because ew. And one of the main things that I want to talk about for dungeons is that they said they're going to want to, and they're working on a system to make dungeons more eternal, where you keep doing them even after the raids start and all that. What do you guys actually think they can do to make you still want to do dungeons after the gear from dungeons no longer matters?
Artifact power.
100,000 gold per run.
100 that what? Shut your no.
I think artifact power is going to play a big part in it, and a lot of it depends on just how much artifact power we're going to need to unlock certain parts of that whole talent UI and such like that. So artifact power will be key. Perhaps dungeons will be tied toward unlocking some of the different forms for your artifact weapons. So I think they're really going to have to tie it well to the artifact system. And I feel like we may see a return of something along the lines of Justice Points or Valor Points. I would like to think that Warlords of Draenor has shown them that when you don't have a currency tied to dungeons that keeps running dungeons relevant, people don't want to run them after the first month of the expansion.
Sure, I ran dungeons all the time to get Justice points, to buy more heirlooms, to buy... There's all kinds of things you could get with them, especially if you knew where to go. So, I mean, it made me continuously want to do dungeons just to get the Justice points. What do you think, Florian?
That's true. Justice and Valor is definitely something we need back. It was a very good system. Nice. I think they kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater when they got rid of Justice and Valor. But in addition, I would like to see Rep from Dungeons make a comeback, maybe Tabards again.
Yes.
That was a pretty good system that I feel worked a lot better than the current go kill mobs until you pass out system.
You know, I'll tell you what you guys. I'll tell you guys what kept me in dungeons back in Vanilla WoW, and that was the dungeon set of armor.
Sure.
You know, there were set bonuses. They were hard to get. You had one boss that dropped all the pants. That was Baron Rivendare. And it kept people going in, but I mean, maybe that's more frustrating than they want their current gear acquisition system to be. They've tried to modernize.
Well, that was a world without Raid Finder.
Yeah, it's true.
That is true.
I mean, that was a world without Raid Finder where you could acquire, sets of gear fairly easily and stuff. Back in Classic WoW, a very small portion of the player base was actually in Molten Core and AQ and Naxxramas and all that stuff. So I don't know if dungeon sets are really need to be a thing in this day and age.
I think I think Florian hit a really good point there with reps, because there's some cool rewards you can get from reps, but some of the old grinds are extremely some of them are just difficult to do. So I think if they make it a way, because like the daily rep reward in Mists of Pandaria was really nice, because it could let you slowly progress to something. If they let you do that with even like, I'm going to refer to them as like legacy reputations, you could get me doing a lot of dungeons, especially if you're like, hey, you don't feel like killing 47,000 pirates to get your Buccaneer rep or whatever it is in Booty Bay. Just do dungeons for like 6 months. And I'd be like, you know what? Sure. Okay. Yeah, I can do that. Because there are some fun rewards in the old reps. And like, I'll be honest, on my priest, I have, because I'm dumb, I have Alani, the red the thundering red cloud serpent that flies over the veil. But I'm dumb and forgot that to learn him, you have to be exalted with the August Celestials. And my priest isn't. My hunter is. So he's just sitting in my bags doing nothing.
Oh! But people are like rolling over their dirty graves.
I'm just like, oh Lord, why are you on my priest, silly dragon? And I can't send him to my hunter, he's soulbound. And I'm like, but, oh... And farming Warbringers to get the little signets isn't very easy anymore. Especially not on a priest. So, yeah, if I could just continue to do some dungeons to get some August Celestials rep, I'd be real happy.
I would be happy... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, what were you about to say? I'm sorry.
Well, I think you were about to get to the point I was going to say when you said you were moving ahead, because what I was going to talk about is a little bit ahead.
Okay, I was going to move to... they said they're only going to have normal and heroic dungeons at the start, and that they want to do mythic dungeons, but they will probably come later. And we had talked about this before, that if mythic dungeons start at the very beginning, they will become irrelevant just like everything else. So yeah. I think that they'll probably always release mythic dungeons probably right around or before the final raid. Especially if they said they really like the raid system that they had in Warlords, of these two smaller raids at the start and then one bigger one at the end. So these two small ones, then mythic dungeons, and then the big final raid. Yeah.
I just don't understand why they can't let us have mythic from the first, make it impossibly hard to do with the gear that we have, except for the raid gear, and just gate it by how damn big the numbers are. You know, doesn't that make more sense than...
Because people will find a way.
Don't want mythic to be defined by...
Yeah, they will, and the really sick people will get really awesome gear, and I think that's really cool. But, I mean, maybe from a balance perspective, that's bad in the long run to do it all. But, you know...
I would rather that the mythic difficulty of dungeons be a little bit similar to the mythic difficulty of raiding, where it's not just about gear, but one of the things that disappointed me with the first implementation of Mythic Dungeons is that they are only Mythic in name only, and that basically what you have is all of the damage, HP, all the numbers were tuned up, right? You are not seeing different mechanics on trash or especially on bosses. They are doing the same stuff that you've seen them do on normal and heroic difficulty. I want Mythic Dungeons to have boss encounters which perhaps have an extra ability thrown in, adds a little extra layer of complexity to it, or even go in the direction of what if some of these dungeons have Mythic-only encounters. You know, you have a space in the instance that's kind of reserved and out of the way for a Mythic-only encounter that we don't get to see until later on in the expansion. Mythic needs to do something more than just have higher numbers to be interesting and intriguing for me to play.
Why would you only release it with the last tier of gameplay? Why not release it with
you don't necessarily have to do that, is what I'm saying. I just feel like if we're going to continue the whole normal, heroic, and Mythic, I just feel that Mythic needs to be more than just higher numbers.
Oh, definitely agreed there.
Well, you also run into the problem then if Mythic isn't released until later in the expansion. I feel like that might help disincentivize the developers to create more dungeons in later patches, because they can just say, oh, you want to do dungeon content? Well, now you have the Mythic dungeons, you can do that, so we're not going to add any dungeons in this patch.
Right.
And one thing I definitely want is for us to go back to the days where we got dungeons on the regular rather than just at the beginning of expansions.
We need to have a troll dungeon after all.
Yeah, we haven't
That's
fought
true.
trolls
It's been
in
a
a
while.
while. We definitely need to go fight some trolls. I'm gonna go fight some trolls right now.
I agree.
The other thing they said is that challenge modes are being reworked to be more accessible and to have more incentive tied into them. I kind of agree with this. Like in Miss Pandaria, I did the challenge modes to get the gear, but it still seemed rather underwhelming. I barely even used that transmog gear. In Warlords, we had a little bit higher item level rewards come from them, and a transmog weapon. Again, nothing that I really cared about. And I don't feel like challenge modes
Even
are
the
really
daily boxes.
Yeah, I don't feel like they're being done much. I feel like challenge modes as a whole are pretty on the low end. Do you guys have that same feeling?
Yeah, I just don't think
absolutely.
the carrot at the end of the stick is shiny enough.
Yeah, they're. I think more the
Painted
prestige,
gold.
and I think they're a small group of people who are obsessed with getting the realm first, the realm highest times, and yeah, that's it. I mean, they're not making it good for the everyman. Maybe they tried. It didn't seem like they tried really hard. They didn't change it too much throughout the expansion, except by upping the item level of the box rewards that you get for doing the daily Cosmo quest. But still, it was never worth grabbing 4 friends for me to go into a challenge mode dungeon and try to bang our heads against a wall, because they are really tough and fun, but if it was, for no good reason, because even if you did one, you had to do all the rest of them to get any reward at all.
I'll be honest, I paid for mine. I'm not even ashamed.
That's what's up.
I'm not even ashamed. And I didn't even care about the gear so much as I wanted those darn Phoenix mounts before they went away.
Right.
And they changed it to and they changed it right there at the end where if you did it, you got all 4 Phoenix mounts rather than just 1. And I was like, what the hell?
Exactly.
Sold! As someone takes a big pile of gold from me and says, thanks, guy. We're going to go do this like it's nothing. Moving on, they have 3 raids that they are currently planning on. Emerald Nightmare with 7 bosses. Suramar Palace with 10, where we kill Gul'dan. And the Tomb of Sargeras, which they have given us no further info on. I have a feeling this is just going to be a thing we just have to wait for. Emerald Nightmare, sure. Suramar Palace, that's the ancient elven civilization that's there, and then Tomb of Sargeras. Anything that we're real stoked about? Is anyone real excited about the Emerald
Killing
Nightmare?
Gul'dan. So wiping that stupid smile off his green ass face.
I'm just finally
Ass-face.
happy. I'm just finally happy to finally enter the Emerald Dream, Emerald Nightmare, whatever the heck you want to call it, and get a glimpse of what that area is supposed to be like. I mean, honestly, people were talking about the Emerald Dream being a possible expansion idea ever since the days of the Burning Crusade, and I've always felt that the Emerald Dream was something that was better suited to a content patch, kind of like how the Firelands raid and the daily areas were. I don't think there's enough content for the Emerald Dream, Emerald Nightmare to be an entire expansion, so I feel they're treating it the right way by making it a raid, and I think there's one of the dungeons is also tied into that whole lore and storyline too.
Yeah. The only other thing that, and this was mentioned in a Q&A, someone said, what are your guys' thoughts on the rumors that Sylvanas Wind Raider is going to be a raid boss? And they just said, that's interesting. 'Cause Blizzard. So
it's interesting that they would know that that's the raid boss already.
And I'm going to pull up a little of the later talk here, and I put some things under lore, and they said possible allies and enemies, and Sylvanas was listed there. So Sylvanas is trying to avoid eternal damnation, and her Valkyrie are what's keeping her from that, although she's running out of those since she keeps on dying. And they said Sylvanas must decide how far she'll go to protect her people and whether they're more precious to her than her soul. Now, Sylvanas only cares about herself and her Forsaken, and that's the reason that the Valkyrie even saved her, because she realized that she needed to live to protect them, and that's the reason that she promotes the Valkyrie, creating more of them, because they can't actually reproduce, because, well, their dangly parts are dead. The thing is, though, is that...
I don't think Valkyrie have dangly anything.
So, the Valkyrie are the shield maidens of the Vrykul, and the home of the Vrykul is actually in the Broken Isles. So, in theory, couldn't she go and get more Valkyrie? Because we are going to be going to...
Well, these are different... These are supposedly different Valkyrie, though. These aren't.
Yeah, they're pure...
Scourgy undead Valkyrie, yeah.
But...
Interesting.
We're going both to the Vrykul Heaven and Hell. I'm assuming the Valkyrie... The pure Valkyrie that they describe, the non-Scourgy ones, are in the Heaven, which I think is called Stormhelm. Stormheim, I think, is actually what they called it. Sylvanas is Go ahead.
It's the Halls of Valor.
Okay.
Stormheim is like the name of one of the zones. The Halls of Valor is the one where, like...
it's Valhalla.
The Valhalla, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But Sylvanas is really powerful and is bordering on undead powers equivalent to the Lich King. Couldn't she maybe go there and just be like, guess what you are now? Because I'm a crazy bitch. Is that possible?
Yeah, like that.
I think she could. I mean, just grab some Valkyrie, kind of rub some plague on them or something.
Like a crazy piece of this expansion, because from what I've heard, we've got Illidan, we've got Gul'dan, we've got Sargeras, we've got Ashara as well. Swimming around in the damn lake, ocean or whatever.
Yes.
Give me a break. That's a lot of central
I think you
players.
guys are looking at it wrong.
Okay.
I think that the story where Sylvanas is involved is less about her making a move or taking action. I think that the story that involves Sylvanas is going to be more so tied to her running into her long-lost sister Illyria, because they did say that Illyria and Turalyon will have their time in this expansion. So I believe that that's the storyline where we're going to see some interplay there. What happens when Sylvanas runs into Illyria and Illyria sees what's become of her sister?
Well, and Sylvanas' ultimate goal isn't like controlling the world or anything like that. It's about her survival and the survival of the Forsaken. That is her ultimate purpose and goal in life, is to make sure she stays alive and the Forsaken actually get to have a place in the world, because, well, she looks at them as herself, as people. What I think we might actually happen, I don't think we're going to kill Sylvanas if we do fight her at all. I think she's going to have one of those, like, freedom, redemption things, kind of like when we fought Terran Zoo and Miss in the Shadowpan Monastery dungeon, where you're fighting him, but all you're trying to do is make him stop, because with Terran Zoo, we beat the living bejesus of the Shaw of anger out of him. And I think that'll be kind of what we do with Sylvanas, too, of, Sylvanas, you're kind of going off your rocker, stop it. And then she goes, I'm really sorry. I'm going to go brood for like 20 years, because that's probably what she would do. I don't know. Anyway, tinfoil hat. Mine's real big right now.
Real big hat.
Flying. They said that flying is going to work exactly like it does in Draenor. You have to do everything that they want you to do first, and then you can fly. Then you can fly. It'll be implemented much earlier, since they already know how they want to do the system. Cool with everybody? I don't have any problems with it at all.
Nope. Seems like they got to figure it out.
I'm fine with it, but they say much earlier. Here's the thing. I feel like they're painting themselves into a corner by saying this right now, because what if they don't do it at 6.0? I mean, the system would be do all the stuff we want you to do content-wise, and then you unlock flying. But what if that content includes content included in, say, the 6.1 content patch, then, or 7.1 content patch, rather, I'm sorry. How will people feel about that?
You know, they've always given us really poor excuses for why we can't fly. You know, like it's too cold, you have to learn how to fly in those cold temperatures, or there's like arcane energies that keeping you down and stuff like that. You know, like it was something about like the atmosphere of the planet was you needed to learn how to use it in Burning Crusade and stuff like that. They always have some reason of why you can't fly. I think, honestly, if the people think they complain about that, but really they just go, that's kind of dumb, and then they move on with their lives. I think if they put it in 7.0, and then if in 7.1 they put in a new zone, and you can't fly in that zone until you've, I don't know, taken out all of the done
a silly dance 7 times.
No, until you've done all the questing and stuff, which will probably mean, like, okay, go and take out all of the, Burning Legion encampments.
If you're on a PvP server, I want you to get 100,000 honorable kills on the continent before you're able to fly.
Oh.
That would suck.
Oh. It's already bad enough that most of the Draenor PvP achievements only work in Ashran or in Draenor.
How do you unlock flying on an RP realm?
An RP realm? You go to Goldshire, spend 2 hours there without logging out.
Oh, God. What is wrong with you? But I think it'll be something like that, Ro, where they just have an excuse for you not to be able to fly there, and then once you do everything there, you can fly there.
Right.
It's cheap and cheesy. People will go, that's dumb, Blizzard. And Blizzard will go, you're going to do it anyway, shut up. And then people will go and do it, and then it won't be something they complain about. Yeah. Okay. So just a couple other things that I wanted to touch on. They actually issued a public apology for the naming of patch 6.1, and that they admitted they should have done something different. And they also issued an apology for kind of Warlords as a whole. They know that they dropped the ball on it, that garrisons didn't play out how they wanted.
Interesting.
This is something I was pretty surprised at, because it's really good for people to admit their faults and recognize public downfalls, but people really ragged on Miss Pandaria for a whole large number of reasons, but I don't really remember them apologizing for anything besides, we're sorry that you had Siege of Orgrimmar for so long, that's our bad. But everything else, they're just like, just shut your holes, whereas in this case...
We're sorry for saying that we wouldn't nerf the Everlasting Candle.
But, I mean...
when you lose 4.4 million players, that can spur you to make some apologies like this, is all I can really say.
Right, but they also went on to say later in that interview that they're not actually concerned about the subscriber count, that the field for gaming is getting more diverse, that they're kind of ignoring spikes and valleys as they realize it's going to be a much more natural occurrence, and that they're okay with that. And I think a lot of that actually comes from them having so much of focused on your own play. I mean, it really does kind of feel like a single-player MMO at this point, and so once you're done with the single-player content, you're done. So then you just leave until they give you more.
Were we talking about that a couple weeks ago, how we were saying they don't care if you just come and log on for 3 months and do the content and then cancel your account until the next expansion releases? I think we were talking about that. Yeah, why not?
And I think it's really more of a reaction of the public sees it as bad, where it's not really that bad. And I made a note here of that. I can probably bet that at least 60% of the people of those 4 million that quit WoW are now playing Hearthstone and or Heroes of the Storm. And just...
Guilty.
Pouring more money than they were spending on WoW into those games. Guilty.
So much more money.
Guilty.
No,
$50 for the pre-purchase.
Oh wait, no. I did buy the access to beta, for God's sake, and Heroes. Did not regret that at all. Got my little Raynor. Me and him are buddies, kinda. He's hard to use, honestly.
Did you pre-purchase the Hearthstone stuff, Ro?
I haven't yet, but I'll tell you when it's going to happen. When I finally see what the release date's supposed to be for it, then I'm probably going to get pressured into buying. Yeah.
It's supposed to be this month, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's supposed to happen sometime this month, but they haven't actually nailed down the date yet. They have another live stream event coming this Friday where they're going to reveal more cards. I have a feeling they're going to say, by the way, next Tuesday is the launch, so you better pre-purchase, and that's probably when I'll do it.
Yeah, I already pre-purchased because I'm a tool and love to give Blizzard money. Dude, they gave me
and millions of others.
They gave me access to the Heroes beta. I logged in, went to the tutorial, played like 2 games, and went, here's $100, Blizzard, and just like dropped money on them like it was candy. I was like, what's this? The Nexus bundle?
Made it rain.
Yeah, they're like, for like $60, we'll give you 9 heroes, a bunch of skins, a couple mounts, and some cool stuff. And I was like, sold! All right. Played some more. Oh, this champion's really fun. Oh, man, he's not free anymore. Here's $10, Blizzard. Let me play him. Oh. As I continue to just drool over things that they give me, and I know that Overwatch is gonna do the same thing. They're gonna be like, you want Tracer to look like a British general? And I'm like, yeah, I do. They're like $15, and I'm like, oh, here you go.
Like a British general. Oh,
Yep.
well. Yeah, I mean, League of Legends is a money-making machine. It's crazy. So they're like, oh, yeah, I think we could probably figure this out.
I don't like
no
to
problem.
talk about how much money I spent on League of Legends. I played League of Legends since
please
beta,
don't.
and I played it for 3 years, and I spent over $1,500 in that time frame.
Dear... Oh!
I'm a tool! Actually, because right before I quit, I sent an email to Riot and said, hey, can I get my entire purchase history? And they said, we only approve these like once a year. You've never requested one. Yeah, you can have yours. And I looked at everything I'd ever bought, and I split it up from the day my account went active to the day I started the game to the day I decided I was going to quit. And it equaled out to me spending like $13.49 a month. So I was essentially just subscribed to League of Legends. Yeah. But when you put that number as a whole, like if I tried to think of how much I've spent on Warcraft as a whole, I probably don't want to know that number. No, definitely not.
Yeah, no thanks, please.
A couple other things.
Blizzard wants to send me a check.
One of the things they said, and they didn't say anything past this, which frustrates me so much, is they said, well, going into Legion, we have really high hopes for the transmogrification overhaul, because we're going to make it really easy to browse through what you have unlocked in for each slot. End comment. And I'm like, wait a minute, transmog overhaul? You didn't say anything about that. What? Has anyone besides me and Florian played Diablo?
Yes, I played quite a bit of Diablo, and I can't wait for 2.3 to be live.
I really, really hope that the transmog system in Warcraft goes into the Diablo transmog system, where once you have held something, you can now forever transmog it. You can sell it off, and you still have the transmog saved. Because that just makes more sense.
It's honestly the way they have to do it.
Yeah, it just makes more sense. Like, I realized that transmog came to Warcraft first, and then they kind of like redid the system and made the system really good for Diablo, but I felt like it took way too much for their improvement to go the other direction. Anyway, garrisons are still going to be active in Draenor. You can go back and operate them with, and they'll be no different than they are today. So that means you can keep making money through your garrison row and go for double gold cap.
I expect a gold nerf. I believe. I mean, especially when you consider that WoW tokens cost 25 to 28,000 gold, and with garrison missions, you can, especially if you have alts and stuff like that, you can probably make like 1,000 to 2,000 gold relatively simple through garrisons. I just feel like they have to nerf those gold missions once we get into 7.0. I would be surprised if they didn't, because take a look at Troves of the Thunder King back in Mists of Pandaria. They outright got rid of that content because they didn't want people making an easy several hundred gold a week, right?
Yeah,
So-
and even now, because they already nerfed gold once in the garrisons, even now you can still pay for your subscription through your garrisons. I think someone did the math, and you have to have three alts with at least 10 treasure hunters, and you can pay for your subscription through your garrison.
Yeah.
Which, that's not much. Like,
So-
that's pretty easy.
Yep. So I mean, yeah, sure, you can probably still do them, but do not be surprised if they get nerfed. And I would also not be surprised if some other gold sources like Cataclysm raids finally get their gold nerfed.
Yeah, just so people stop running them.
Yeah.
Maybe, we'll see. I mean, like, is it a little too late? I mean, there's so many people I know that are way over gold cap now, purely from garrisons, which is amazing. I mean, is it kind of like, closing the door after the army's already inside?
I don't know. I mean, the funny thing is that even with all this gold that's been made and all the WoW tokens that people are buying, the hilarious thing is you would think that with all the gold that was being made that the WoW token price should be going up significantly. It's only gotten up to like 27,000, 28,000, which means that there are still plenty of people who have expendable income that they do not mind purchasing those tokens to sell to people to get gold. So I guess there's enough suckers born every minute out there. That's all I can say. Honestly, I really hate to say this. I just honestly feel that if you are purchasing WoW tokens with real money to sell them to get gold off the auction house, I get it. Maybe you don't have all the time in the world to play World of Warcraft, but it does not take a lot of effort to make gold. I spent maybe an hour a day playing.
It takes me like about an hour to get the courage up to go to Firelands to farm it for the how many 4,000, maybe 5,000 gold if I get lucky with drops.
Yeah, if you do Hero 25, it's on average 4,000.
Or an hour, or I just I mean, it's like we had my stepbrother on last week talking about botting and why he decided to bot in the first place. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. How much time do you have to spend to play the game? When you log on, what do you want to do? And if I only got 2 hours a week to play, I'm not going to farm gold. But I do need it, so I can really sympathize with those players. Yeah. I'm not going to disparage them whatsoever.
Arguably, right now in Warlords, you don't need it.
I do not. You're right.
Because Blizzard is handing us everything on a silver platter through that mission table. So,
wait, no. Is it really more profitable to go hang out in Tanaan than it is to go to Firelands to farm gold?
I don't think so. I mean, it was when Tanaan launched because Fellblight
hype.
Yeah, it was selling for a lot, right. But that price has finally went down. So you're saying that you just don't need gold for anything because they're just going to hand you gear. But I guess gems and enchants are still going to be this is actually not a bullet point on the news. We have a lot to cover. We're actually almost through. So we'll go into the next one. The only other thing that I have on here is a little bit of lore stuff. I know me and Florian are big lore buffs. Evan, you're interested a little bit. Ro, how big are you on the lore?
Pretty darn big. In fact, the lore is a big reason why I play World of Warcraft, and I think the lore and how it's being presented and the fact that they're trying to incorporate lore more into class quests and stuff like that is going to be a big reason why I am intrigued and interested in playing Legion. So yeah, I'm all about lore in a big way. I just wish that their head lore guy felt more energetic and enthusiastic when talking about it in the presentation.
Sure. So I put
because yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I put a couple bullets in here of things that I just thought people might, more of the masses might actually have a connection to, because they mentioned the lore stuff that I mean, there was a couple names in there that I was like, I don't know who that is. Turns out they were new guys. So one of the big ones that I think is that he said that Jaina no longer leads the Kirin Tor, that Khadgar does. Jaina has, and this all he said is that Jaina has left and she is quite upset. What does that mean? Like, so I know for a while there people were thinking that Jaina was gonna like go off her rocker, explode, and just take out everything, and she almost did. But if anyone has read the book War Crimes, Jaina almost dies in that book. She eats a fireball to the face. And if it wasn't for the Red Crane, she would have died. If it wasn't for the Red Crane and Anduin Wryn's faith, she would have died. And after that, she got a humongous wake-up call because, near-death experiences tend to do that. And then she calmed down a lot. And it just seems kind of like this... I mean, she barely... Wait, did Jaina show up at all in Warlords? No. No, okay.
Oh, no, yeah, she did. She did. Actually, when she shows up over in where Khadgar's tower was,
okay.
Right? And if you play the Alliance, if you play the Horde storyline, Jaina shows up and says, the Horde shouldn't be welcome here, and Khadgar says something like, well, I don't care about what you're saying.
Shut up, you dumb hoe! Go back to your flying city!
I'll keep the profanity down.
So the thing is, though, is that Jaina was appointed as the leader of the Kirin Tor, so you have to wonder what Jaina did or what caused her to leave. I have a feeling, and this is something we haven't really talked about a little bit yet, that artifacts are really tied into this as far as the lore goes. They say that the artifacts that we're going to acquire are going to be from people who have fallen or who have given up hope or, given into despair. I really feel like in terms of lore, some major stuff's going to go down. I think we are going to see really major characters die. That is it. I feel there's a reason why Anduin Wrynn has this new updated model and looks older, and he's one of the main characters in that list of characters, but you don't see Varian. And so one possible theory: what if during the opening event for Legion, where we're going on to the Broken Shores, Varian Wrynn dies, Anduin has to take over as king, and Jaina's pissed at Jaina's upset about Varian's death and stuff. Maybe something with the Horde could have been there to help or whatever like that. I just think that Jaina leaving and being upset probably is going to have less to do with Khadgar and more to do with events that take place in those opening battles. I think certain people are going to die, and it's going to affect her in a big way.
Right. One of the things that really struck me about the lore and the story that they were bringing forth the expansion was all that they're revealing. It was lines on lines on lines, and then they said this is all going to happen before the actual expansion releases. I'm like, what? All about the battle at the Tomb of Sargeras and everything that leads up to it and everything that ensues during that battle. I mean, that's for an expansion pre-launch event is pretty dense, and I definitely understand what they mean when they say that compared to the Dark Portal event in the Blasted Lands, this is going to be a lot more. And I think, it sounds like 10 times as much. I'm really looking forward to that, but I can definitely see huge plot points going down that really shake our, kind of perception.
Tyrion Fordring has the Ashbringer.
Exactly.
Right now.
They said that every person who's ever played WoW is going to be shocked, which is a pretty bold claim. But
I have a feeling Tyrion does die. They said you go to the Broken Shore to pick up Ashbringer. To me, that says... Because the Broken Shore is the place where we go to spearhead their invasion. I assume that Tyrion dies there. I don't think Thrall dies. I think Thrall probably wants to be done for a while. I think Thrall's pretty damn tired of being Green Jesus. And he passes the Doomhammer on to somebody else that is younger, more fit, more capable. And I'm not saying that Thrall is incapable. He's kind of getting old. He's got a family. He probably just wants to try and protect them. I mean, who knows? Maybe he gives up some of his power to quell some of the invasion. I don't think Thrall dies though. Maybe something does happen that makes Jaina upset. I think it'd be incredibly difficult to kill Varian. He has a demigod inside of him, so he's not really killable. But
for some unknown reason,
so
as a Horde player, you're being like, what?
Yeah, sure. Game mechanics are always different than lore mechanics. So I mean, I don't see Varian Wrynn dying. But maybe I could always be wrong. Next one though. Go ahead, Florian. I'm sorry.
One other thing to consider with this is the class orders, which actually also offer a clue. For example, the player, if he is a paladin, is the head of the paladin class order. There's no possible way the player could be more qualified than Tyrion to do that job.
Well, and they also said
something's
that
almost certainly going to happen.
The paladin class order is actually leading the Silver Hand, which is the people that Tyrion's associated with.
Yeah, so it pretty much all signs point to Tyrion being taken out of the picture and probably dying.
He's real old though, so
Yeah.
The only thing though is that I legitimately question on both class orders and artifacts and all of that is that only Retribution Paladins are getting Ashbringer, so what in the bejesus are you giving Prot and Holy Paladins that holds up at all?
Uther's Hammer.
Oh, sure, that's a good one.
Uther's Hammer could be one.
Yeah, okay.
And so that would be for what? That would probably be for
Holy Paladins.
Holy. And then the protection would likely be a sword and shield, which could be... you could go
You could get him from Turallion.
Blood Knight route with that.
Or you could get him from Turallion. Maybe.
Yeah, that too.
So let's go ahead and talk about those two for a moment. What do you guys think is going to be Illyria and Turallion's involvement? Really?
I think they're going to be announcers, and questing is going to be more of like a sportscast event.
Sure. I think that they kind of have an open door with those two. They've been gone for essentially ever. They've been gone since before Warcraft 3. They actually, in terms of story, they disappeared after Warcraft 2. And so they've been gone for like 15 years. So they could... Turallion's going to be old, by the way. Illyria not. She's an elf. But Turallion, he's going to be like 50.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how they're going to incorporate them in, but heck, we saw Gul'dan get blasted through a portal, and then for all we know, there he is at the Tomb of Sargeras, and he finds Illidan in that cinematic, right? So if they can do something that simple to take someone from one place to another, they'll figure out something for Illyria and Turallion. I just have no idea how they get brought into it, but...
Do you think they'll disclose where they've been and what they've been doing, or will they just be like, hey, we're here now?
Somewhere in between. I think you'll learn some things, but not all the nitty-gritty details. And maybe they'll save that for a book.
I wouldn't be upset about that.
Only $19.99 US, $29.99 Canada.
Order now, Amazon.com.
Audiobooks, make them good.
I really wish they would include that with a God Blessed subscription. Wouldn't that be something if they were just sanctioned and it was like tax paid? Like part of our subscription bonus goes to these authors, and they're just hired by Blizzard. And they release the lore for free. We can read it because it's the goddamn game we play. That's all I'm saying.
Right. No. Their business. They have to make more money off of that. The next one, though, this one, because I have a feeling I know what's going to happen, this one makes me sad. Maiev Shadowsong. The last that we actually... She was the one who was originally guarding Illidan. Illidan got out because... Tyrande and Malfurion came to let him out because they needed his help. She kind of went off a rocker, tried to kill all the Night Elves, failed, tried to kill all of the High Elves that actually currently live in Darnassus, failed, and that was the last we saw of her. She apparently went back to the Vault of the Wardens to make sure that the other demon hunters couldn't get free. And since we know that they get free because, well, we get to play as them, I have a feeling we kill her in, like... I have a feeling she actually dies in the starting quest for Demon Hunters. Which makes me real sad, because she's real cool. Can we get that as the next hero class? Can we be Wardens? Because they're really cool looking.
You know, if they have a lot to draw on from these custom heroes you could buy in World of not World of Warcraft, Warcraft 3, Frozen Throne. I mean, you have the Goblin Tinkerers, and you've got like Tinkerer as a player class rather than just a profession. Brewmasters, of course, they covered and all that stuff. It's when are they going to start doing something a little bit new? I'd like to see. I'm not going to reiterate it after last week. A Bard class, give me a break. But it doesn't exist in the lore up to this point. So I'm thinking, even though it's a great fantasy class, they got a million things they're going to do once every 5 expansions until they get to that. So that makes me a little discouraged.
I'm game. I like I said last week, I'd be game for a Bard class.
That's good. I'm glad you're with me on that.
They said that Karazhan has importance in the expansion. That's all they said. My tinfoil.
Yeah, why not?
My tinfoil hat guess is that with as many timelines and dimensions that Karazhan seems to touch, it'll probably be a way, like an extra doorway for the Iron Horde to invade us. Kind of like how we got semi-invaded from Blackrock and the mountain. What is Blackrock Mountain? Yeah, Blackrock Mountain. I have a feeling it'll be something along those lines. I think it'll just be a doorway essentially that they. Attack Stormwind, because that's what always gets attacked. Always. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, they made the move to put Karazhan in that opening trailer cinematic. Will Karazhan be a raid that's revisited? I don't know about that. I could see some quest content happening around there, but I think a lot of that's going to depend on how they're developing Khadgar's character and such, because it would appear, it just feels like when you see Khadgar take off from Karazhan, it gives you the impression that Karazhan is Khadgar's home, away from home now, that like he's basically inhabiting the place since Medivh's gone now. So, I don't know, there's going to be more to it. I just don't know if they're going to do it as a raid or not.
You start talking about Sargeras, and you start talking about, you said Khadgar kind of occupying Karazhan in Medivh's absence?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's sounding spooky, man. Sounding kind of damn spooky, you know what I'm talking about?
You think it might go...
That whole Khadgar is actually Medivh theory, or Khadgar is also possessed by Sargeras theory?
Or going to be possessed,
or just the whole thing of history is doomed to repeat itself, and Khadgar is going to pull Medivh. Not necessarily because he has Sargeras inside of him, but because he'll fall prey to him or something like that. I mean, we're getting really close to Sargeras at this point. I mean, Burning Legion is here, his tomb is here, Gul'dan. I mean, it'd be easy. I could easily see the final boss of the expansion being something along the lines of Sunwell. We're not fighting Sargeras / Kil'jaeden. We're fighting an avatar, a piece of them. So I could see us fighting a piece of Sargeras at the end of this.
No, yeah, I agree with that.
I think after all this smug, ordering around Khadgar's been doing, let's let him get corrupted, slap him around a little bit, and wipe him off the face of the planet like we ought to have done a long time ago with some of the other people. Sargeras himself, I don't know. I like this kind of thing. Maybe I've got a little chip on my shoulder about the Khadgar thing, how he's kind of been as a personality in this last expansion. He's kind of like the Black Prince.
He's kind of too powerful for his own good.
Yeah, you're like, what are you even doing? It's just like, it's just toying with us and like, oh, you're my little champions on my little chessboard, this and that, blah blah blah.
Sure.
I'm developing a little bit of a second opinion about him now.
Surprisingly, that's not something they mentioned or something that anyone asked about. Is Wrathion, because he even predicted that the Burning Legion would be here. So where is he now?
I think a small prediction here. I believe we're going to likely see Wrathion in High Mountain, where Neltharion's old home, old stomping grounds is. I just have a feeling that we'll bump into him there.
Florian, what do you think?
Because, father issues.
Sure.
I definitely agree with that. That seems as likely a place as any to find Wrathion. Or maybe he's not going to pop up until we show up at the Tomb of Sargeras. He's going to pull that thing where the big hero arrives at the last second, which seems like the kind of cheesy writing that the World of Warcraft writers have been into recently. Yeah, definitely some of that. We could see either or. I hope they just don't kind of forget about Wrathion, because it seems they've had this thing a lot lately where they start plot threads and then kind of forget about them. It would be nice to see that not happen.
Okay.
It's like when they try to finish out an expansion, they're thinking, all right, which one of these loose ends can we tie up in a cool way? And then sometimes they've been, we don't have enough loose ends. So going forward in the future, they just create a bunch more loose ends so they have material to work with,
Yeah. Well, they have to continue the story somehow. I mean, Garrosh was technically something born in Burning Crusade and made into a loose end and made into a
Exactly.
loose end that was tied up. So they could easily be
I'm
doing
not
something
saying it's a
similar
bad
with.
strategy.
No, it's actually real good, and it's something that they actually do quite well.
Just depends on how much you exaggerate it, and how much you make fun of it when you talk about things like Wrathion. In this context, we don't know what they have in store. They might have nothing in store, and that's like the comic part of it,
So the last
which is what
character
talking about. Yeah.
on the list is Illidan. He's he had that big reveal because we got to see him and his tattoos, and then he's on the box. But there's been nothing indicative of friend or foe. Gul'dan wakes him up, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Illidan is going to serve him. Where do you guys think that Illidan is sitting on this whole power struggle thing? I mean,
Oh, dude, definitely beef with Sargeras, nothing more or less.
Illidan is the Frank Castle of World of Warcraft. If that makes sense to anyone here.
it unfortunately is lost on me.
Over my head.
Okay, so have you ever heard of the Punisher in Marvel Comics?
Yes.
Okay, I think that Illidan is basically kind of this anti-hero role. You can't exactly call him bad, you can't exactly call him good either. I think you'll find him fighting against... I think you'll eventually find him fighting against what the Burning Legion's trying to do, but his methods and his way of going about doing it
Yeah,
may not
they're
be
gonna
all
be
that popular
abominable.
with the good guys.
And
Exactly.
he's
Cool
not fighting with
idea.
us, he's not fighting against us, he's fighting on his own, and we kind of want to stop him, but at the same time we don't, because he's
Right.
he's helping just in ways that we don't approve of. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I will take out the Burning Legion by blowing up the entire continent. There's innocence here. I will blow up the entire continent. Can we evacuate? I will be blowing it up in 10 minutes. Oh, God. Good thing I can teleport.
Wait, make that 5.
He's got wings. He's not going to get blown up. I can teleport out of here. So, sorry, Frank. Flips the bird.
Well, not only that, Illidan's technically a demon now, so even if he dies, his soul just goes to the Twisting Nether, so, F
Yeah.
it.
What do you think, Florian? Friend or foe?
I think neither. I kind of agree that he's sort of this anti-hero character. I think he'll definitely wind up, like, I'm sure we'll wind up at some point fighting alongside him, but not because he's our friend, more because he just, I guess, hates Sargeras probably more than he does us, I think.
A necessary ally?
Yep.
Pretty much. The sort of the enemy of my enemy is my friend thing.
Yep, sure.
I think he's going to start killing innocent people with reckless abandon, like Rose maybe alluding more towards, and we're going to be like, oh, come on, dude, and it's going to be effective, though, because he's got 10,000 years of hatred built up. And
Well, now he's got even more now.
Yeah, it's like 10,010 years.
10,010 years. So, yeah.
Seems
I like
so
in, Heroes of
seems
the
so
Storm.
de minimis now, doesn't it?
10,000 years, and then also several months in a weird timeline thing has been happening. It seems more like a loop than anything.
One last thing I wanted to ask you guys is this expansion way more than the last one. Like, people comment to the Warlords is like, oh, you're just playing on nostalgia now. Does anyone else feel like this expansion is just turning that, let's turn the nostalgia dial up to 11? I mean, people are already calling it the Burning Crusade remake, Illidan's coming back, Dalaran's back, the class quests essentially go to every last little piece of nostalgia importance we have. I mean, it kind of feels like they're just like shooting every bullet they have at nostalgia targets.
It definitely feels that way. Not only with that, but with them handing out the free Ashbringers and Doom Hammers. It very much feels like they're saying, here's all the things you loved from Warcraft 3 and also the old expansions. Please come and resubscribe again. Please.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Legion, the word Legion in Portuguese just translated as fan service, right?
Maybe?
No?
I don't know, but
Sorry? Really?
are you pulling my leg before I look this up?
I am pulling your leg.
Okay.
This does. My point is that this does feel like a very fan service heavy expansion. Is there anything necessarily wrong with that? No, but at the same time, I do hope that when they do all this stuff, that the story that they craft and put together makes a bit of sense, at least more sense than Warlords of Draenor, because there are elements of the Warlords of Draenor story that were just absolute complete failures. Don't even get me started on Grom Hellscream.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I feel the fan service you're talking about. I feel a little scandalized, but like kind of giddy. Is that the right reaction to have? It's like we've been asking for things like Shadow Hunters for a million years, Demon Hunters, to as far as hero classes and prestige kind of style, and they're giving us all this crap, and I'm like, damn, I feel a little dirty, but I like it.
Okay, so
I wonder if this is gonna be a kick-ass expansion.
I can give you the perfect comparison to this. I give Blizzard lots of money, and I know I'm a tool, but I still give them money. So it's like, I know that you are just basically just being like, here, you want something shiny? Yeah. And I'm like, oh my god, I like it, yes. And it's like, why did I don't care, I have the shiny thing. So you could say you feel dirty, but at the same time, like I said, I know I'm a tool. I know I'm giving them my money all the time, but I don't feel bad about it because what they're giving me is still gold. So, I mean, it's not like I'm...
As long as it makes you happy, that's what's important.
Yeah.
Funny.
Even if you recognize the pandering, essentially.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, we've already been talking for 2 hours. I was getting ready to move towards the end of the show and closing things out, but I was going to open up the airways to anything else that someone wants to throw in, because we kind of just went down everything that I had provided, but, I mean, there was still some more here and there. Is anything else that anyone wants to talk about?
Yeah. Found a funny post on Reddit that said it was a multiple choice answer. What will the expansion be about? One was South Seas. Answer B was Eye of Ashara. Answer 3 was like Return of the Burning Legion, and answer 4 was all of the above. It seems like what they've done has been all of the above, which is a pretty cool crowd pleasing kind of announcement. I'm liking it.
Yeah, I mean, technically everyone's predictions were true. Well, besides yours, because you said we were going to build a spaceship and fly off to the world.
Go to space. Oh, well. Next time. Got to leave a little bit.
But I think everything that they're doing is fine. It all makes enough sense together that none of it feels odd. I mean, we kind of already knew that Illidan was going to be still alive because he is a demon, so that means that he does have to go to the Twisting Nether. The only thing that I think people are kind of, at least lore people are kind of going, is the class quest with the artifacts, just because it does raise a bunch of questions, but I'm sure they'll answer them just fine. We'll know why we get Doomhammer. We'll know why we get X, Y, and Z. So I think that is, I mean, all we have is technically, 4 hours worth of expansion announcement and Q&A panels. So we don't have that much, even though we were given a humongous amount.
I just want to know what the Warlock artifacts are. That's all.
I imagine one of them will be a book of some sort.
Maybe. I feel that one's probably gonna be, you're probably gonna have a staff, a caster sword, and something else.
And the Demonomicon.
Dagger, probably.
Wand or something.
You see, that's one thing I was thinking about with rogues and artifacts. It's like they can't make the rogue artifacts daggers, can they? It just feels like you can't do a whole lot visually with daggers unless they're honking huge daggers. I'm talking Crocodile Dundee style daggers. That's not a dagger.
You call that a dagger?
For rogues, though, I imagine combat will get some cool swords, because combat's all about swords. I imagine that subtlety and assassination are the other two. I imagine subtlety will get probably a fist weapon, and assassination will get daggers. It's just my guess.
No, subtlety's all about the ambush, though. I think subtlety's going to get a dagger main hand and like a sword or mace off hand, and then assassination's double daggers all the way, here to the end of time, because of mutilation or mutilate.
because you literally have to use daggers. And then
Right.
I
I'm
have no
curious,
doubt that combat
the
will be
Frost-
swords or
They
maces.
revealed
maybe.
that Frost Death Knights would go to Ice Crown to get a shard of Frostmourne.
Yeah.
Blood and Unholy. No, they don't get Frostmourne. They don't get Frostmourne at all. I'm thinking
one then gets like a two-handed
the famous blood
sword or
drinking
hammer.
the famous blood drinking axe was the one
Yeah.
they showed some of the variations on. Frostborn though, I mean, how are we gonna pump up these artifact legendaries?
That's
to
the same
make them
thing I
really
said about
feel-
paladins. Ret Paladin gets Ashbringer. Screw you, Holy and Prod.
Yeah.
Like,
Except Holy's gonna get like probably Tyr's hand, like a hammer, or like something like that. I imagine.
well, Rose said Uther's hammer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it's going to be interesting because, I mean, some of these artifacts are going to have a connection to lore that players are familiar with. Some of these artifacts are basically going to be, in essence, created or retconned into the lore of World of Warcraft to fit a role. And you have to think that some class specs are going to feel a bit more giddy and excited about the artifacts that they're claiming over others. How excited are survival hunters going to be about getting the Eagle Spear?
Sure.
Right.
And like the Fire
love
Mage,
the
it's a
Eagle Spear.
retcon sword of apparently it's the sword that Kael'thas used
that's
originally against the first fight against the Lich King, which he never had a
Right.
sword, but apparently he does now. So,
Yeah.
So one more point on the artifact weapons. Uther's hammer, I think, is a two-handed hammer. Can you imagine them changing the rules, saying nobody's going to get any weapons except for these artifacts, so holy paladins can all of a sudden use two-handed hammers? What?
well, and I mean,
That was our one whole episode.
I can find this one much easier than the one that you slipped in under a sentence that I don't remember. At least this one's at the end. But I mean, because like they said, like with the two one-handed swords and all of that, like in even comparison to like the Demon Hunter's glaives, it's going to be like the glaives are going to be a single item that occupies both hands. So if Uther's hammer is a two-handed hammer, it doesn't matter what weapon type it is. Its weapon type could literally just say artifact, and it's just Holy Paladin artifact, and it just happens to take up both hands. So it's not that they have to allow Holy Paladins to use two-handed maces, just they happen to hold that hammer with both hands.
Although with survival hunters, considering that survival hunters can be created at level 1, or technically level 10 since that's what you choose your spec, they are going to have to retroactively put in spears for survival hunters. to use.
I really hope so. That would be a major cop-out. Give us that, like, for all the levels,
Well, they
give us
don't
that
have to,
diversity.
though.
Same with the...
Because
But the Demonology Warlocks, you're saying, Demonology Warlocks aren't going to have Metamorphosis, they're going to just summon tons of demons, but only after level 100, until level 110. That wouldn't make any sense.
Well, they're not getting new abilities. They're just getting a rebalancing of their class. So you're just not going to get Metamorphosis, which you didn't get until level like 85 anyway, and your abilities are now going to have more focus on your demons. So that'll happen from the very beginning. And you don't have to retcon hunters, because hunters can already use pole arms. They never got the ability to take any of their...
level 1 to 1 hunter revamp for survival.
There's no reason to. They have to revamp survival hunters a little bit because they have to give them some melee abilities now, which I imagine they might just grab some of the old ones back since most people really miss like Mongoose Strike and stuff.
Raptor Strike.
But hunters you can still go to your hunter and equip a pole arm. It doesn't do anything because all of your abilities require a bow, but you can already equip it. They didn't take away any of the ability to equip anything of a hunter. You just have no reason to equip anything besides a bow. So they actually have
shows you how much I know about hunters.
It's old knowledge that fills my brain for no reason at all.
There you go.
Anything else though before we head out of here?
I'm excited about the expansion. I was surprised with what they decided to do with it. It's kind of it's everything people thought was going to be and nothing people thought what was going to be. And this whole, to me, the whole class focus of Legion is almost like what the garrison concept was to a lot of people. For me, whether or not Legion succeeds is going to heavily depend on how well they succeed at the class fantasy for each class in the game.
I agree. I think a lot of the expansion will actually just be benefited purely by Dalaran, not because of nostalgia of Dalaran, but getting us out of our garrisons and getting us into a place where we all can collectively be and hang out. I think it improves it a lot, because once the single player experience is dead, then the multiplayer social experience is what's left. And getting us in places where we will always be with other players, even your class hall, there's probably always going to be another member of your class in that class hall. So you'll always be with other players, whereas I didn't feel like I was ever with other players in Warlords.
What good is a transmog revamp if you don't have a place to really show it off?
Exactly. All right, let's move on. That is our show, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Again, we did receive a piece of mail. Taikuda, thank you so much. You just sent us an email that says, hey, you're excited about the expansion. We are too. I hope that you enjoyed everything we just said. If you would like to send us feedback or questions, you can email us at thecastbar@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter at castbarpodcast. Call and leave us a voicemail at 508-738-2278. And don't forget that we do have a website up that has a form that you can fill out at www.thecastbar.com. All of our shows are available on iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube, as well as our website. The music done for the single bumper that played today, which was the intro, is done by Kevin MacLeod. You can find all of his work at Incomtech.com. Thank you again so much to Ro from Realm Maintenance joining us today. Ro, anything that you would like to say, where people can find you, shout-outs, anything, go for it.
I'll go with a nutshell version. On Twitter, find me at ROWOW, RHOWOW. And if you want to know what Realm Maintenance, the podcast, is more about, go to realm-maintenance.com.
And I highly recommend his podcast. It's not very long, so if you get tired of listening to us yap for 2 hours, he runs about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, so it's a little bit shorter and sweeter. If you'd like to find me, you can pretty much find me on any form of social media, normally under the handle at SchwahnMichael. That is SchwahnMichael. That's Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, everything. Evan, where can people find you?
Send me an email via the Castbar at Castbar Podcast. The Castbar. No, the Castbar at gmail.com. I'm going to remind all of our God bless the listeners that it's 1:24 a.m. Eastern Time right now on a Saturday. Or hit me up on Twitter at EDCWow.
Wonderful. And Florian, do you have anything that you'd like to say, people, since you are not a very large socialite?
They cannot find me online, but what they can do is send email to the Castbar. I encourage them to do that and to continue doing that.
Wonderful. All right. Again, thank you, Ro, for being here. Guys, thank you for this wonderful
Thanks
episode.
for having me on.
Oh, yeah. If we can ever make it happen, Ro, we will make it happen. And that's why we're recording now, because you are a very busy guy who works in the evenings, complicated schedule, but if in the future something comes up again, we would love to have you back.
Yeah, worth it. Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's been a lot of fun tonight.
Definitely. Without a doubt. Anything else, guys, for the good of the cause before I hit this button and we all go get some food, some sleep, and God knows what else?
I'm ready to sleep and have plenty of Legion dreams.
Oh, one last thing. Overwatch, right? It's on our launcher now. Give it to me now!
Give it to me now. Give me the trial version.
I'm really excited, okay? I'm really excited. Anyway, let's go ahead and get
You are throwing your money at the screen already.
I actually don't have a whole lot of money right now, so I'll throw my empty wallet
You
at
spent
the
it all
screen.
on League of Legends.
No, I don't play that game. I spent it. I think I actually spent it on Magic cards and builds this time. Again, because I'm a tool. But
Not that money, this money.
all right, take it easy.
You are
See ya.
out of time.
That was a ton of fun.
Yeah, it was.
Glad you happened on, man.
Sorry if I tend to get chatty at times. That was probably one of your longer episodes, if I'm not mistaken.
We
No, not
all
the
get
longest,
chatty
though,
at
by far.
times. Like, me and Evan will go back and forth, and then we realize that we've been yapping about a single topic for 15, 20 minutes, and then we go, hang on, Florian, would you like to endow us with some knowledge? And he's like, here, this, you're both stupid. And we're like, oh, well, all right, yeah.
Did you see
by the
even
way,
I got in
Florian,
on
you're
that
still
game?
Yeah, I saw that, bro. That was a good job.
Yeah, Florian's
Florian,
very
man.
polite and doesn't like to jump into conversation, so you
Talk
have
about
to...
two talking heads.
Yeah, right?
It was really nice having you on again, definitely. I'm sure Florian does not feel stepped on. I am
He's
curious
so
if he
flattened
is
right now,
even
he actually
there.
can't speak.
No, I'm okay with it. I really am.
All right, well, I am going to go get some food.
Cheers, thanks for
Ro
that.
and Evan are probably going to get some sleep. I imagine Florian actually needs sleep,
Yes.
too. Because it's only 9:30 for me, so... Yay, Alaska!
Must be nice.
It is nice. It's real nice. I was when Ro was like, "Can you do 11 p.m.?" and I'm like, "That's 7 my time." I guess maybe.
Yeah, no problem.
It's latest for me. I really got to get out of here, guys. I'll see you later.
All right.
All right.
Take it easy,
See
everyone.
you guys. Thanks for having me on again. I
Peace.
really appreciate it.
Thank you so
It's
much
been
for
a pleasure.
coming.
See ya.
Bye.
No problem. Bye.
Oh my god.